Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation to PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Peace, peace, peace. What it is, it's your brother Tyvon Swainell, a.k.a. the Orthodox Moor, a.k.a. the Seven Pillars Saracen, here with my special guest, Vocab Malone, fresh off of two debates, one off of Mormonism and one off of Calvinism, as I understand. How you doing, sir?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's been a busy past 3 days. I think I'm all debated out.
Yeah, he's a little tuckered out, so I doubt this might happen, but if we crack 100, you gonna do a freestyle or no?
Man, I ain't got no beats, man. I'm off, man. You don't want that.
No, I just threw that on the last second. There's no expectation on that. But yeah, I asked them to come through to have a conversation on Islam, on Middle Eastern Christianity, and on nationalism in religion. And I wanted to have him on for a couple reasons. One, he had me on his Facebook Live a long time ago, where Robert Spencer was on. And we were able to have a really good conversation about Islam. He was very charitable with me. He gave me a lot of space to move and whatnot. It was a good conversation, and I wanted to return the favor on that. Considering my man just got his channel demonetized concerning Islam and whatnot, and there's been a couple of controversies concerning that whole concept and whatnot. So I wanted to come through and let him speak and have a good conversation and back and forth on that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So with that, let's just get right off into the first topic and whatnot. Because in the last bill we had on this platform, I heard you talking about you actually were studying Islamic topics before you got into the Israelite apologetics concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what got you into wanting to study Islam, period?
With Islam, there was a couple apologists and apologetic ministries that I followed who started getting more and more into it. And they were going deeper than I was accustomed to. So I already had somewhat of an interest and different things like that. But I just would kind of listen to them as they were going into it. And before I knew it, I developed quite sort of a backlog of information on the topic. But I wasn't really running into a lot of Muslims like on the regular or anything like that. But then one day that all changed, and I realized how helpful it was, this background information I had kind of been accumulating to be able to have a profitable discussion with these Muslim men that I did run into. And then after that, it was like the floodgates were open. You know, I believe in divine timing and providence. And so it was after that, it was like Muslims were sort of everywhere in my life, and that continued on for some time, and to an extent still continues on, although things are a little bit different now. Prior to that, though, my main experience with Islam was actually of an unorthodox variety. I went to high school and was in some scenes, especially in high school, a little bit in middle school, but especially in high school, where there's a lot of Nation of Islam influenced, and especially 5% influenced guys. You know, it gets tricky when you talk about membership with 5%ers, but yeah, that's what happened.
That's very interesting. So how long were you dealing with the Nation of Islam and the 5%ers and whatnot before you actually started studying more so Orthodox Islam?
That one is a little bit different because some of that exposure was in more formative years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was more like discussions and just things people say when you're hanging around playing video games or making beats or walking around the neighborhood or those kinds of things. So it was a little more formative than like because it was my friends. So it wasn't like, yeah, let's debate this. It's more like, hey, you know, what do you think of this idea? And this guy I follow says this, and it was more like that. It was more just bouncing things. No one really knew, or, you know, high schoolers, and it went on into early college, but that was a little less debatey, very conversational. And you know, it's funny. The NOI guys were a little more hostile towards somewhat of a Christian belief. But the 5% guys in my life, mainly guys, they didn't see like me or Christianity automatically as an enemy. Now, I'm just telling you, this is very anecdotal. I recognize that. I'm just telling you sort of my life and these experiences. And that's probably because I already had a relationship with a lot of these guys prior to them kind of getting into this thing. You know, older brother would introduce them, something like that. And then they would say these things. And a lot of times it was sort of sloganeering, you know, positive energy activates constant elevation, but it's like, oh, what's that mean? Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And they were mixing a lot of other stuff now that I realize in hindsight is sort of the Afrocentric side of the conscious community. I didn't really know it at the time, but they would show me, they would draw pictures of ancient Egypt and then do diagrams. And it's like they were teaching me was their vibe. I was just listening. I was just kind of chilling. So it's funny though, for the longest time, for a while, I'll put it that way, I didn't fully understand that Nation of Islam wasn't Islam. I thought I was learning about was like Islam. It was like later on I realized the kind of massive gulf that existed, you know, and I was like, oh, I've been like learning around, you know, the offshoot guys the whole time, you know. It was just a funny realization at that time.
So you were confronted with like nationalist type sects before you even started dealing with the Hebrew Israelites, huh? Yeah,
but so I got it. These are my friends, and I had a couple, believe it or not, I had a couple teachers. So I had a couple teachers who were all about, I don't know any other way to put it, indoctrinating their students with Afrocentric sensibilities. But the thing was, they treated me cool. So especially one, he was almost like he was kind of like, I want to say mentor, but he was so inappropriate for being a teacher. He was almost more like your older uncle kind of mentor figure. So he would teach me all the stuff and talk about it and discuss it. And he didn't seem to really mark me out as really different from the rest of the class, even though in some certain key ways I was sort of different than the rest of the class, you know, a sort of in a minority position. But he really didn't treat me that way. So it wasn't very hostile. It was more like, let me just teach you about the realities of Mother Africa and what we can learn from there. And then someone else would mix it with Nation of Islam stuff. And so it wasn't like hard in your face. You know, there's all these nationalistic undertones, but it was more like just this way of life in a way, but they really didn't treat me any different, the people I'm talking about at that time. So like I said, it wasn't a very hostile experience. You know, it wasn't like with the Hebrew Israelites today who were largely hostile to me. And it wasn't like now, a lot of times when I talk to an NOI guy or even some of the fivers now, a little more hostile, but that's probably because we're kind of meeting on the internet, which is different than, you know, walking around the block with somebody. I know if Sakari hears this, they'll always laugh. Oh, Vocab tries to sound like he's from the hood. Look, I'm just telling you experiences. I'm not saying I'm from old Cabrini Green, but I'm just telling you experiences in my little city, my little neighborhood of what it was like, you know?
That's what's up. If you don't mind, I'm going to play a video clip real quick and then ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Let's roll.
Attack in Texas, investigators chase leads overseas, and a slain gunman returns home. According to local media in Kansas City, Missouri, Nadir Sufi will be buried today. He's one of the two men that targeted that event that offended many Muslims by featuring cartoon images of the Prophet Mohammed. And the feds are scouring the online contacts of the other gunman, Elton Simpson. They're especially focused on Junaid Hussain, a British hacker linked to ISIS and believed to be operating in Syria. CNN's Kian Law is in Phoenix, where Sufi and Simpson shared an apartment. Good morning.
Good morning, Carol. We're learning much more about Elton Simpson, and I want you to take a look at this video. The video itself is innocuous. It is from 2012. It is a fundraiser, but we actually see Elton Simpson. We get a sense of his personality. We've been hearing all week that he's so mild-mannered, that he wasn't violent, that he was calm. You actually see it now. You can hear it in his voice, and we're also hearing the fortitude of his faith in this video clip. Take a listen.
It recharges your iman as well. When you come together and you pray 5 times a day with the brothers, provides for you a form of weaponry to go out into the real world and use that weaponry to shield you against the tricks of the shaitan.
Now, friends say he converted to Islam while he was in high school to basically stay out of trouble. That's why his family supported him in his choices, that he continued to study it as he became an older man. We also interviewed a pastor friend of his. Yes, an evangelical pastor. They were friends at work. They debated theology often. And even though it doesn't make sense to many people, this pastor believes that this violence in Texas, that it may have felt like a logical step for Elton Simpson. Here's what he says.
I was surprised, but not shocked. I wouldn't put it past him because I understood the sincerity of his beliefs. And he had expressed to me admiration, specifically for Osama bin Laden. He used the word hero.
Now, the FBI wants to know whether these choices that Simpson and his shooter friend, the one who went with him to Texas, if they were directed or they were inspired by ISIS, specifically their connection to Junaid Hussein, that British hacker you were referring to. They want to know how closely they were all.
Yeah, so I want you to speak a little bit about Elton Simpson and your relation with him, and also how much did he impact your focus on studying Orthodox Islam and Salafism and Wahhabism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. Man, there's a whole lot there with that. So Elton was one of the guys who I went out. So we worked at the same place together, and I saw him reading Barnabas. And I'd already been studying on a kind of intaking things like I was telling you about earlier. Mm-hmm. I knew when I saw someone reading that, I thought this because that was popular with Muslims, especially at the time.
Right.
I almost knew he had to be a Muslim, but I didn't want to assume or whatever. But I saw him out there by himself waiting on his ride. It looked like that particular day. And I stopped and I just said, "Are you a Muslim?" You know, because I was leaving work myself. So I had time. I was ready to make time. And he kind of smiled and, "Oh, yeah, well, why do you ask?" You know, and that led to a relationship. And that led to a lot of long conversations. And so I had this background. So I wasn't ignorant speaking with him. But that pushed me even further where I was really doing research, because I realized very quickly he had either been trained or he had trained himself. You know, I don't know the level of how that all worked, really as a polemicist. So he was clearly ready to launch attacks against Christian doctrine. Like that was one of the first things he started coming out the gate with me. He wasn't angry or rude or anything. You know, some people think maybe just because he ended up being a jihadi that he was like a psychopath. He was not like that at all. And he was actually pretty chill. He was very serious, though. I'll tell you that, very serious. But he was a chill guy. Like, he had an easy smile, everything. So he right out the gate started attacking Christian doctrine hard. And a lot of the stuff, fortunately, I had kind of bulked up on. There wasn't too much he was saying that I was like, so we were having a legit dialogue back and forth. And I could kind of tell he was somewhat surprised, but he just kept on launching different attacks and saying this and saying that. And there was a couple where I was like, man, you know about that? You know, like this, it was things I was surprised that he knew. And he was like, oh yeah, you know, I watched D-Dot and different things like that. And he told me what apologists he liked, you know, Islamic apologist. And so this began this relationship, and we'd have these long parking lot discussions. When I say long, I mean 2 to 3 hours. Then when I saw him inside work, I would try to talk to him briefly on break. That was a lot more brief. And then I would always look for him. And sometimes he would leave stuff on my car and I would leave stuff on his car. So it was a very interesting relationship. Eventually I stopped seeing him and I was like, oh shoot. But then I asked some of the other guys what happened. He didn't work there, whatever. But then I started witnessing at the mosque. Now this is controversial. I recognize it. Okay. But you know, I'm not afraid or ashamed, but I'm just saying, I started witnessing outside the mosque, to be specific, on the public sidewalk to the Muslims there. Then I see him and I was like, Now I never called him Elton. I never knew that name or anything. Ibrahim. That's the way he always told me. It took me a while. I had to confirm. It took me like half a day because when I saw his picture, I was like, I had to make sure because they had different names. And then I saw something confirmed he went by both names just because I was like, that looks like him. I was like, but the name, he never went by Elton. Anyway, so I didn't realize he was a member of that mosque. So then we started talking outside the mosque, and that was a lot. That was just wild. That was just a very, I don't mean crazy like wild. I just mean like he saw himself sort of as a protector, I think, of the ideas that would be the people there would be exposed to. And so if someone was talking to me and he would come up on us, he would immediately insert himself and take any literature we had handed from them. And it appeared he had some kind of influence because even older men would willingly hand him literature just by him asking at it. But just him say, hey, brother, let me have that. They would give him whatever was in their hand, almost no question asked. There's a few stubborn older men who wouldn't give it up because I could tell they were just stubborn like that. But almost all of them would do basically whatever he said, right? And so he kind of fulfilled that role for a while. Then I just stopped seeing him, and I asked one of the other guys what happened to him. I don't know. I haven't seen him. It seems like his attendance kind of decreased right before the attack is what it seems like. I don't have an exact timeline of his life like that, but that's what it appears. So I hadn't seen him in a while until I heard the news report, and then I was like, what? Dang. I didn't know the other guy. I didn't know Nadir Sufi. I don't remember ever meeting him. If he was with Elton, he must have been very quiet or something like that. He didn't strike me as someone I remember seeing or anything like that. But that was our relationship. It was friendly, but it was like I don't know. It was like I don't know. I'm just gonna sound lame, but something like Magic Bird. It was like this friendly, competitive rivalry. We really were on the other side. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there seemed to be a respect. But we were really also going at each other and doing whatever we could. And because my goal was to expose the people there to the gospel of Jesus Christ, and so I wanted to do that because by my talks with a lot of people at the mosque, I knew they had never heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Some people don't believe that. You don't understand. A lot of Muslims come from another country here. And if they come here, a lot of people are scared to speak to them. A lot of them have never actually heard the gospel presented. I kid you not. It's a true fact. And I know because I saw it. His good job was to shield them from that. So the nature of our relationship sort of changed at that point. And then, one day then I saw on the news and I wrote a blog about it. That's how the news got a hold of me. I just was like, well, I used to be a blogger mainly. Before I did kind of video and stuff, I did blogs a lot. And this blog I wrote, somehow the news got a hold of it. And next thing I knew, for 3 days in a row, I was doing nonstop interviews. There's more of them. I don't know how many of them have survived. That seems to be like the one clip or whatever. But I know I did like 6 interviews over the course of 3 days or something like that. But that was a sad thing. And see, that really made me realize how serious this was. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, dang, what if I could have, ultimately is what he chose to do. But if I could have said something, done something, because, and I never saw any images where you could see his body, but there was a couple images where they would show the car and they would have the body bag zipped up because they were killed right beside the car. And in one of the images, you could see unless I was mistaken, my eyesight's not perfect, but I saw this image. It never left me. You could see real small, looked like a New York Yankees baseball hat. And I'm almost like positive that was Elton's. Like I said, I could be mistaken, but that's exactly, it looked like a baseball cap, exactly like he would wear. And it was like, it's weird, like this last image of him in a way. And I was like, man. So that's what kind of led me to keep on going further into things dealing with Islam, which I kind of thought I would do the rest of my life, to be honest with you. I thought that would be kind of the lane I would travel in. You know what I mean? It's definitely a global issue, so it's never going to go away, but I'm not obviously in that lane as strong these days.
Was he always a Muslim? Did he grow up Muslim, or was he a Christian beforehand? Or he
grew up in a church situation. My theology would say he was never a Christian. He, of course, would probably say he was based on the way he would describe it. I think the background was Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And, he just would say basically negative things. And it seemed like a lot of his family members were still involved in the church in different ways or whatnot. So he would say that he grew up as a Christian. He was a convert. When I met him, I don't remember how long he had been in, but it wasn't incredibly long. but I was surprised at the pace and rapid nature of his growth. You know, he was already peppering Arabic all on his phrases. He was like already on a very serious path. You know what I mean? And that's when I asked him about bin Laden. And he said quickly, before I could almost finish the sentence, hero. He didn't give a long explanation. He just, what do you think about bin Laden? Hero.
Wow.
Said it. He was just like that. Wasn't joking. It was like matter of fact to him. Like bin Laden is a hero. You know?
So is that what you meant by he was serious?
No, that's what I meant by that is I haven't met a whole lot of Muslims who are more studious than him and dedicated to whatever they think the Quran and the Hadith are really saying. I don't think I've met a few Muslims. There's one other guy that particularly comes to mind out of all the Muslims I know or have met. There's one guy who was kind of on that level, you know, that I could think of that I met at the Tempe Mosque. I don't know if he's still there, who actually reminded me a lot of Elton, except I'm pretty sure he was a Muslim most of his life. He was a Middle Eastern man. Elton was one of the most serious Muslims I had ever met. When I say serious, I'm talking about as being a student of what it is that Islam teaches. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. He wasn't serious like I never smile. I've definitely met more austere Muslims than Elton, but I mean in relationship to what he was willing to do based on what. In fact, I think that's a reason why he left the job we were at. I think it had to do with what he was allowed to wear and not wear. I think there was some kind of problems, and I think he gave up his job because of something like that. I don't know the details, but that was my understanding. It had something to do with that.
As far as you understand, was he radicalized in the mosque that you saw him in, or was he like a plant from like another cell or something like that was hiding out in the mosque?
So I've looked into this, and it appears like there was a guy who came over, I think from Chicago, who sort of started a haphazard cell. And something happened with that guy, and Elton kind of took over inadvertently. It looks like, this is my understanding of what occurred. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it was all surrounding the mosque. The reason I know that is because I know another guy, I know of this other guy who got busted later on in relationship to the case. Apparently he supplied them with some weapons and training in a knowing way. He was also affiliated with the mosque, same mosque, and the same mosque we witnessed at. Nadir Sufi was from that mosque. And I haven't talked about this one a lot, this man. A man his real name was Paul. I also knew him because he worked at the same job. It was me, Elton, and him. And I actually knew Paul longer than Elton, but Paul was a lot more quiet and reserved and not as like articulate as Elton. So he wouldn't have the long conversations. It was a little more just like a quiet faith. But the reason why I bring him up is he was also involved in, all the reports I've read make it sound like it was a pretty haphazard cell, but nonetheless a serious cell. So they got in contact, it looks like, with a some kind of hacker from ISIS in London. And apparently on this guy's hard drive, this is all publicly accessible information, what I'm telling everybody. There was information linking him to my friend Paul. And it looks like Paul, and I knew this part about Paul. Paul was in the Navy. And apparently Paul got more radicalized while he was actually in the Navy. And so he was sending apparently ship movements of what the Navy was doing in the Gulf to try to replicate some of the attacks that had happened, I guess, on U.S. Ships in the Middle East. Was sending this to this guy that he knew on Twitter in London. So they actually came to our job one day and busted him. Now, I didn't physically see this, but I was like, hey, what happened to Paul? But, we called him a son. And everyone's like, yo, the FBI came and said he was building a bomb. I was like, what? What? And like, that was like mad shocking because he wasn't as verbose with, Osama bin Laden's a hero and all that. Now, I found out later, he was involved with terrorist activity to a mild degree, but he wasn't building a bomb. That's how rumors are. People are talking about he's building a bomb. But they came and pulled him out of his actual job site with the jackets and everything is what they were telling me. Pulled him out, and then he's out now. So my friend said, hey, I saw so-and-so the other day. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's trying to get his job back. I was like, I don't think he's going to get his job back. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, he was actually a really cool guy. My point by saying that, sorry if I went long. I'm sorry. He went to the same mosque. So all these guys are at this same mosque. And The mosque has some diversity to it, but I'm going to tell you, that mosque is a mosque that has produced a certain amount of, that mosque has had a certain amount of people affiliated with it who later turned out to be involved with jihadist activities, because those aren't the only guys. I believe there's 2 more, and there's 1 more depending on how you count them. I looked into this. I forget the exact number. It depends how you tally one of them, but they're all affiliated with that. Now, I've also witnessed at the Tempe Mosque. I know this doesn't mean anything to people, but a different mosque in another part of the city. Nothing like that over there. Nothing like that over there. So the flavor of the mosques does attract certain people and apparently grow them. And I think the main sheikh there is problematic. He's from Egypt. He went to what's the school called? Al-Azhar. I always mess it up.
You said it right.
Okay, yeah. He went there. He's supposed to be a master of the hadith and hadith sciences. And whenever he would come out and see us talking to anybody, he had this little minivan and somebody else would be driving it. He'd be in the other side with it was all white on. If somebody was talking to us, he would go real slow and he would wag his finger, the person talking to him, or do this, and they would like leave. They would scatter like the second they saw him. I was like, this dude. So he would never engage with us, but it was like a glare and a vibe and a way he like could tell these grown men, like, don't talk to, so-and-so with just a wag of a finger. I mean, if I was at a church and a pastor saw pulling that kind of stuff on me, I'd be out, like you can't talk, but that's exactly what this dude was like. So I've heard some of his sermons. The problem is a lot of it is untranslated Arabic, but they do have English portions. And I think he's bad news. I think the guy's bad news, and I think that has an effect on the people.
So what specific form of theology was he teaching, and what did he learn that you knew of at Al-Azhar?
Those guys were Salafi, but see, the whole mosque wasn't Salafi. See, this is like American mosques, are different, like, because what happens is you have people from all over the world in any given city, right? And so they come together and they end up kind of going to a mosque, usually kind of close to them. Mm-hmm. But it's just part of their life to continue to be involved with a mosque. But it's not, it's a little bit different, at least from what I've seen, because the selection is smaller than most Christians try to find like something in their rough theological range, stuff like that. It seems a little bit different. They just go. So you have all these different kinds of people in these places, but the leadership can have a certain tone, and then other people will be attracted to that based upon that. If that makes sense. So these guys were all Salafi. All these guys were serious Salafi. You know what I'm saying?
So for the people who don't know, who are listening, what is a Salafi Muslim? What is their ideology?
Okay. So, most people have heard about Sunni and Shia, but then within Sunni, you have something called Salafi. This is the way I understand it. I'm still learning. Islam is a massive, massive subject. Now, what happens is British Orientalists, as they were called, these are scholars. I'm talking the audience, not you, but these certain kind of scholars who would study a lot of times things related to Islam. They started dubbing the name Wahhabism. But I remember when I first said that to Elton, he didn't like that at all. And so I said, okay, I won't use that term anymore to describe your beliefs. And he explained to me Salafi, and then it was kind of like part of my consciousness ever since then. Instead of saying Wahhabi or Wahhabist or Wahhabism, they don't like that term. They view that as a European term put on them. But the idea is to get back as far as you can, closest to the original teaching based upon the first couple generations of Islamic leaders, viewing them as sort of the best. So things produced there being seen as an exemplar, a template, a blueprint. And so they look at that, and they tend to have a certain hadith collection they attach themselves to, meaning a lot of times the Shia have a different set of hadith they attach themselves to. And the Salafi tend to be more conservative. So they're a lot more textual based. So they really want to know, what did Muhammad do? What did he say? How do we apply that? So they have very serious discussions, these kinds of Muslims, about there's problems with images in Islam. This is a short version. So they'll have very serious discussions about, should we be on Facebook? Because there's image representations there of living things. These are very serious issues to them. So if you know a Muslim who's like sitting around on Facebook and, you know, drinking beer, this is not the kind of Muslim I'm talking about. Those are nominal Muslims. Salafi aren't like that. They view a lot of the rest of Islam, a lot of the rest of the Muslims really is kind of like lukewarm, kind of like not really serious. And they feel like they need to like clean house. I don't mean kill them. Well, in the Middle East, sometimes it actually happens, but just get them to straighten up, right? And so the Salafi are also, in my view, man, I'm not saying smarter, but more intellectually minded, meaning they're really trying to take serious their faith. And so they are very serious about listening to what jurists say and scholars say about these types of issues, if that makes sense. So they approach it very serious from that kind of viewpoint, and are really willing to do whatever needs to be done from that point on. And sometimes people refer to like Salafis as like the radicals or the militants. They don't view themselves that way at all. They view themselves as the most true carriers of the tradition. They don't view themselves as mixing politics and religion like you hear sometimes people talk about. They don't view themselves as nationalists. The ones I know and the ones I read about, they don't view themselves in those ways at all. They view themselves as trying to be faithful carriers of the torch, lit, so to speak, in those first few generations. And they view things after that as inferior. So, you know, I would bring up what's sometimes called the Islamic Golden Age to some of these guys, where it's said under Islamic empires, it was very pluralistic and all kinds of arts and culture flourished. They don't have a high view of that stuff. They view that stuff, the guys I was dealing with, as a total compromise and a total sellout, you know, letting Jews be in your high court and stuff like that. So when like moderate or liberal people bring this stuff up, the Salafis like, that's not Islam. What are you talking about? Like they view that with a low opinion, not a high opinion. I asked Elton about Islamic republics. He was totally dismissive. Now, there's over 30 or some Islamic republics in the world. These are like theocratic, supposed to be applying, you know, Sharia law to their government types of governments, right? He was dismissive of them all. Like Saudi Arabia, he viewed as a total compromise sellout state. I was like, wait a minute, you're not even like down with Turkey, Pakistan, none of, like they have some good things, whatever. I was like, okay. I was like, what is one good country in the Islamic world you would look at as being a valid representation of Sharia law then? Without hesitation, again, he says, Pakistan before the U.S. invaded. I'm sorry, did I just say Pakistan? Gosh, I knew I was going to mess up the story. Afghanistan before the U.S. invaded. Now, that means he was saying when the Taliban were in control of Afghanistan, that was the only example of an actual Islamic state that was legitimate. That's what that's what Elton was saying to me. And he really thought that. So I was like, bro, you know, there are some serious Muslims out there. And they will kill you if you draw cartoons of Muhammad, you know?
Yeah. So just to clarify, the Salaf are the first few generations that Vocab was talking about. So they call themselves Salafi because they consider themselves as following the way of the Salaf. Mm-hmm. And as far as I understand it, there's basically like three branches of Salafis. There's the activist Salafi who believes that they can participate in politics and other things and all type of things. And they kind of believe in spreading the caliphate that way. Then there's the non-activist Salafi who doesn't believe in participating in politics. It kind of thinks that it's kind of like an evil thing from Shaitan in a sense, but they believe in kind of like silently spreading the caliphate. And then you have, then you have the Salafi jihadists, right? Who would just it's all's fair in love and war.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's interesting. The Salafi jihadists have very interesting conversations among themselves. So I have a book on my shelf called The Al-Qaeda Reader, translated by a bilingual man, Raymond Ibrahim. Mm-hmm. And in that, he translates the papers and declarations from Al-Qaeda. And he talks about which ones are written by Osama bin Laden, which ones are transcribed. You know, he tries to track down the source and then translates them, and we'll sometimes have some commentary. But it's fascinating because people have this perception of like these wild-eyed guys, you know, thoughtlessly shooting people or something. And the weird thing is, a lot of them, at least the leaders, before they are wild-eyed shooting people, they've actually rationalized and thought about it. So my famous example of that is there's this whole discussion about killing innocents. And Al-Qaeda is having this discussion in the Al-Qaeda Reader, right? And they're arguing in a very academic manner. They present a position, they give the opposing side, they say why that's not right. So it's kind of point counterpoint within their papers. This is stuff Al-Qaeda is doing. And you read it, and they have this discussion about Muhammad in relationship to, was it okay when they were sieging a certain city to lob, projectiles via catapults over the wall? The reason why is because the question is, obviously, these are indiscriminate weapons. So when they land on the other side, they could obviously kill or hurt or harm anybody. And the short version, it's a long story, but the short version is Muhammad was cool with it. Go ahead on. So that becomes a basis from which you draw, that becomes a principle from which you draw application for somebody, because they view it as part of the sunnah, the model of the prophet, as they would say. Becomes a basis by which you can essentially wage war on innocence, because then their mentality for the Salafi is there is actually no such thing as a pure or true innocent under Islam. And they even have a thing where, well, if you kill a fellow Muslim inadvertently who's right with Allah, they actually just go straight to Jannah, because paradise, because they essentially have died in jihad. You've actually helped them. So in my view, it's a very low view of human life, because it is this kind of Salafi jihadi you're talking about. It allows for indiscriminate killing. It truly does. So you look at it though, but the wild thing is they're thinking about it and processing it through a very textual lens before they ever pull the trigger or push the button, so to speak. And you can see it in Al-Qaeda reader. So I think it's helpful. I did a show on it once called What Do Terrorists Read? I think, it was called What Do Terrorists Read? And you can see that's like a interview on this topic, to realize they're thinking about these things. And that's why this narrative of these are oppressed peoples who join up ISIS and these organizations, the narrative is somewhat false. It's true, you may have some of that going on with foot soldiers, but if you study the leadership of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and some of the other similar organizations, you found out it's almost always someone trained at a post-grad level in the West. In fact, the guy who invented what is called Wahhabism himself is a perfect example of that. Went to the U.S., was disgusted by it, had a high level of education, came back, was in trouble with the Egyptian government, wrote all these letters and revolutionized a lot of the Salafi thinking. It was sort of almost like a reformation of sorts. But the problem is the reformation in Islam is very retrograde, essentially to the 7th century. To be frank with you, that's really what happens. So the religion, because of the text and the way the Sunnah is understood, becomes literally a religion stuck in the 7th century, making application in the 21st century. So it's a really bizarre situation that is quite it when you understand it and realize how many Salafi there are, because they are a minority within Islam, but we realize how many there still are, because 1% of a million is a lot. You know what I mean? It does become worrisome, because there's been studies shown where you only need a certain amount of percentage of Islamic people, Muslims in a population to enact an overthrow of the government. And this can include Islamic governments. And that's exactly what the Arab Spring was about. I don't know if a lot of people don't realize that. It was not about getting out Westerners. I mean, they might sometimes use that as a pretense. A lot of times it was Islamic governments they've used as compromised, right? So the Arab Spring is sometimes called, people will actually refer to as the Salafi winter, people that are actually in the know of what really happened there. And so you look and they did this, and you only need like maybe 20%. Sometimes is the number given. There's some this is not exact science when you talk about this, because after you have 20% of a Muslim population, you have a certain percentage that are Salafi or quote radicalized, who then basically roll over the rest and are able to mobilize the rest. And so that's why the arguments you hear of sort of the moderate Muslim, like, God bless its soul, Zuhdi Jasser, who lives here in Arizona, tries to have this like pro-American conservative Islam. It's never going to work. All the people who support him are like people who want Muslims to be our neighbors, but they don't realize Zuhdi Jasser has no following in real life. He doesn't have an actual Islamic base of people who listen to him, which is a common problem. The West always wants to prop up some Islamic guy that they think is great, and they never realize that on the ground, Muslims never relate to that guy. That's exactly what happened in Iraq, Afghanistan. This always happens. It's like the West and people who are affiliated never learn. It's like clueless about the way a lot of these folks really think, you know. And that was the shame of the theory of Paul Wolfowitz and the neocons, who viewed Iraq was going to be like this, and Afghanistan was going to be like these dominoes that would have the rest of the Middle East fall to democracy. Democracy takes a certain set of there's a certain amount of preconditions you would need. It's not like you just introduce it and everyone's like, yeah, because what happens is these folks vote and they vote in hardcore Salafi people. So they just vote in radicals because they have a different understanding of what government is in the first place. Sorry, I went off track a little bit there. My bad, bro.
No, that was an interesting little rant, though, because it brings up an interesting question in the sense to where, yes, Salafis are a very small percentage of the population in Islam. However, being that there's 3 different types of Salafis or whatnot, well, I'll say like this: I see Salafism as growing quite a bit. I know a lot of Muslims at Speaker's Corner. I know a lot of Muslims in America and whatnot, and I witnessed a lot of different fights back and forth between the different groups of Salafis. And for the people who aren't entrenched in the religion and whatnot, they won't even notice that there's a fight going on between 2 Salafis and whatnot, or what the fight actually is and whatnot. Like somebody will be fighting about like, oh, you don't oppose this leader or whatnot. Or we don't have the right to oppose the leader, or someone who wants to spread the caliphate through actual proper jihadism and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? People don't understand the little minutiae and whatnot. So, for instance, like you might have a Salafi mosque on one side of Phoenix or whatnot, but then in Tempe, you might have another Salafi mosque, and you might not recognize the small nuance and difference in what they're teaching, because they both just say they're Salafi. But one, like you're saying, is producing people who are connected to extremism and such or whatnot.
Yeah, that mosque in Tempe, I don't know for sure what all the leaders were. I do know they were involved with a controversy where, if you guys remember, there was a controversy where there was some Islamic men who prayed in the airport and they got detained. It was a whole fiasco. Some of the leaders of the mosque actually are from were involved with that situation. They didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. It was just created a situation, blah, blah, blah. Made the news for a while. I forget how many years ago this was, but you can hear the sermons. They're not really called sermons, but I'm speaking kind of in our language. You can hear the sermons from the Tempe Mosque, and they're kind of quasi-humanistic. And so that mosque actually has some people who are Sufi in it. And Sufi, to those who don't know, they're viewed as sort of a mystical sect, a little more pluralistic in their mindset than a lot of other Muslims. However, there can be exceptions to that. The Chechnyan rebels are actually Sufi, and they do things like bomb schools and take children hostages. So don't get me wrong, not all Sufi are chill people like that, but there was even Sufi guys there. And I remember one day, a guy I used to do some underground hip hop with, I didn't realize he had converted, and he was at the mosque, and I was like, what? So we started talking because we hadn't seen each other in a while, and he's with some other guys, another one of whom I knew, but they were all cool with each other. But it was funny because my one friend would shake my hand and hug me, and the other guy wouldn't touch me. He was like, and my friend would say, I'm Sufi, brother. They're not Sufi. So, that's how they are. And he was basically saying like, they're not going to be cool or whatever, but I'm a Sufi. So you being a Christian is not a big deal to me. We had a conversation about that, which was interesting. Now, I still want to see him come to Jesus Christ. I'm saying I'm a Christian evangelist, but at least we could have an amicable relationship. Whereas the other dude was following, the idea of you don't shake the hand of a kafir. You don't shake their hand. You know what I'm saying? You don't do that. And by the way, that means infidel to those listening.
Yeah, that's an interesting little controversy there. I'm going to invite all my people there who are of the Israelite tradition, who have an issue with what Vocab just said, to go to Surah 5, Ayat 44 of the Quran, where it talks about the Torah being made for a guidance and a rule book for the people, for the nation of Israel and whatnot, and that those who do not judge by what Allah has given them are kafirs. They are disbelievers or whatnot. So he's not saying something that's alien to Islam. He's not making a racist remark. Yes, in South Africa, people use a very similar term in a completely different manner, but in this context here, it does not mean that.
Yeah, I've been called kafir before by Muslims, and they're saying to me, "You're a disbeliever. You're an infidel." Now, there's some debate about if you should call a Christian a kafir, but I'm telling you, regardless of what the academics say, on the on the street, you know, and on the sidewalk outside the mosque or on Mill Avenue, the places I talk to these guys at these times, they'll call you a kafir, you know, in real life. And you can find this also in the Middle East. You know, you could say, well, technically Christians are people of the book, so you need to call them what's the word, al-kitab? I forgot how it is, but
yeah,
how do you say it?
Al-kitab.
Yeah, there. But I'm telling you, in real life, there's dudes who will just call you a kafir in a hot minute, and they don't care, because to them you're a tritheist. You know, you believe in 3 gods, so you're a polytheist to them, is what they'll say.
What's interesting about that is the takfir culture amongst the Salafis is crazy. Like
what do you mean?
Like so. In the sense to where I noticed that they're real quick to do takfir on people. Like, you're not a Muslim, you're not this, that, and the third. Like, not only are you not a Muslim, but you're an enemy of Islam, and I gotta hate you for the sake of Allah and all that kind of thing. Like, so for instance, like I have some Quranist friends who were up at Speaker's Corner, whatnot, who used to be Shafi and Salafi and all that kind of things and whatnot. And not only will the Salafis, like people like Mohammed HIJAB and all them type of people, yeah, like, and Ali Dawah, that not only will they just make takfir, but they'll say that they're the enemy of Islam.
Yeah,
you know? And I'm like, whoa, that's because, and that for some people, if you understand different groups of people how they move, like they're labeling them for being open for attack at that juncture.
Yeah. See, a lot of people don't realize what you just said. That can be, now sometimes people say a dog whistle, but they're exaggerating or they're not right. That really can be a legitimate dog whistle to say this person is allowed to be violently attacked or subjugated because of this. That label does that, and the guys who do it know it, and the guys who think the same way hear that and they understand that. So when you say enemy of Islam in that way, that's a very serious charge, especially coming from a Salafi. Like, that means like we could kill you if we want, and we would be within our rights. That's what it's like. You know, they say he's got the green light on him. You know, those old prison movies.
Yeah,
the green light. You know, that's what that's saying, bro. He got the green light.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't recognize the multitude of conversations that can go on. Like, so for instance, a Speaker's Corner is a good example, because it's like 80-85% Muslim when you go there, right? But it's a multitude of different types of Muslims. And for someone who doesn't understand it, let's say you're just a Christian or an atheist or whatever, you just see Muslims. You don't understand that the complexity and the different layers of what's going on, and like, oh, I'm looking at 7 different types of Muslims right now, or all those kind of things, from multitudes of different countries that have different perceptions and on the West, on a whole bunch of different things, right? And so I'm noticing that, for instance, an intriguing thing I'm noticing is amongst my Somali friends, for instance, that most of them are all Shafi. From the Shafi school of thought, but there's an increasing view of the Salafism and whatnot. My friends from North Africa, same concept. I'm like, oh, this is getting interesting, right? And it seems like, funny enough, they're able to grow faster in places like the West where they get to use it, where they
ain't that weird? Isn't that weird?
Oh, go in. I know you want to go in. Go ahead.
No, that is weird. I'm agreeing. I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, I do have one story that's related that confirms what you just said, but that is super weird to me. But here's the story. Some of the apartment complexes around here went from being primarily people from across the southern border being the main residents. Especially when some of the civil wars were happening, especially in relationship to Syria, they changed the demographic to being almost all people of different countries that were largely Islamic, and a lot of people there were Muslims as well. Primarily North Africa, especially Somalia. I'm talking about here in Phoenix, who came, and then Syria. Those are the main places. There was other places represented there. My point by saying that is, so myself, a couple others, including some Arabic speakers. So I'm friends with, for example, a Christian who was actually born in Bethlehem, and another one who's born in Nazareth. I mean, it's kind of an amazing thing. So, they would describe themselves as Palestinian Christians, speak Arabic very well. One guy in particular was able to sing and play some of the instruments. One kind of looks like a short little guitar with a large, almost like squash-like bottom. I forget the technical name of it, but anyways, so we would go into these apartment complexes, and we were I had been organizing ESL classes for these folks, and so English is a second language. So we would go in and we would say we are Christians. So there was no hidden thing. It wasn't like, hey, wink, wink. It was like, hey, we're Christians, but we know you just got here, and we want to help learn English. And we had another guy who was really good on. He had been a missionary in Jordan and some other places, and so his Arabic was flawless. Like a lot of the Muslims were shocked when they heard him. They thought if they just heard him first, they didn't know he was a white guy. His Arabic was so well, so he could teach English very well because he was a translator as well as Arabic. So he was our main teacher. He wouldn't usually go with us into the complex, but anyways, we'd go in there, and I could tell you time and time again, the Somalis would take it and they would see the word church because they were in English and Arabic. The flyers were, right? And they would give it back, and we would say, what's the problem? And this happened again and again and again. They would say, I'm not going to go anything that's in a church. I don't care what it is. And they would be nice. You know, they weren't like, I'm going to kill you, get away. But they're like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to anything at a church. I don't care what it is. The Syrians, though, I never had a Syrian hand me back a flyer and say, because it's in a church. Now, they don't all show up. They have a thing where sometimes they're like, yeah, sure, we'll be there. And then, you know, they're playing soccer on the day it's supposed to happen. But the Syrians, man, our class was almost all filled with Syrians. Now, it's interesting because even the Syrians, when I say Syrian, it's like saying American in a sense, meaning there's Kurdish Syrians. There's like what people would think of more Arabic Syrians, more, you know, there's Syrians. It gets kind of complicated. Different Syrians there. But that was the majority of the class who came. And it was very, very positive situation. It was a very friendly relationship. Nobody had any problems. But the North Africans were a strong minority. I think there was 2 folks who would sometimes be involved, and it was primarily they weren't gonna have anything to do with anything that was at a church at all. And so I did see a difference, sort of in a more pluralistic attitude versus the Somalis, who were a lot more conservative and strict and rigorous in their Islam. It's an interesting phenomenon to see up close and personal in these little ways it manifests itself, you know.
Yeah, the different nationalities that practice Islam. It's interesting to see how it manifests. Like I got a lot of Somali friends and whatnot, and it's a very cultural thing for them. It's very entrenched for them.
Yeah, I had a friend who he was a guard shack at this job. This is after Elton's already gone, and I would go to the Arab American Festival, and so obviously he was not Arabic, but I would talk to him about things relating to Islam and whatnot. And I remember one day I said, so you're from Somalia? And he's like, yes, Somalia. You know, I was like, is it true that your country is like 99% Islamic? He's like, 100%. Very proud of that too. He was like, I mean, he spoke differently than I'm speaking, but this is like what he was all, yeah, I'm from Somalia, and yeah, we're pretty much 100% Islamic country. You know. So I know what vibe you're talking about. He was a cool guy. We were friends, but he was also very serious and very proud to be a Somalian Muslim, and wanted his country to be identified that way, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, shout out to all the Somalis out there. Yeah, something I find very interesting is like, so I used to be a part of like an interfaith exchange up in the Speaker's Corner between me as a Quranist, an American Sudanese brother who was Salafi, who would fly back and forth over there, some Shias over there, and some Sufi Sunnis over there. And a couple, and one, I think, Hanbali Sunni. We would go back and forth hard and whatnot. And at one point, like people started like doing takfir on them just because like they like the people of Speaker's Corner, just because like they would talk to people like a Sufi or a Quranist or whatever. And then we eventually had to stop hanging out and whatnot, which is unfortunate. But I found out through that exchange that, for instance, like I was able to find out like the different kind of Salafis from my Sunnis homie and whatnot, but I found out through exchanges going on, Speaker's Corner, that like everybody up at the corner like knew of a certain belief system, like knew one person who had gone off to Syria to go fight. I was like, whoa,
wait, what?
Yeah, like everybody knew of somebody, right, who had gone off to Syria to go fight. I was like, whoa, what? I was like,
saying. Oh. Your friends at Speaker Corner, of all the different variety of all the Islamic sects.
No. Like there's a couple sects up there. I'm not dropping no names on them, but there's a certain.
Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to get you to do that, but you're saying everybody knew somebody that went to Syria
of that sect. Yeah, they like everyone knew somebody who went to Syria to go fight. I was like, whoa, okay.
And people need to understand they're fighting against the Syrian government, not against some Westerners.
Yeah, like it was a when I heard that, my jaw hit the floor, because there's people at the corner who also like were linked up with people who like had attacks up on bridges up in London and all kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, but y'all are like being way too relaxed about certain things. And here's the interesting thing, right? Like, so we were talking about the free speech thing earlier. Like, I literally had 2 YouTube pages shut down from the Salafis over there because I was challenging their beliefs and whatnot from over here and whatnot. I was talking about I would back up people like Tommy Robinson or other people who, or even people like David Wood, for instance, right? But like, no, they have the ability to critique Islam and do whatever. Like the Quran stipulates we have to stand for justice, even if it's against ourselves.
You're not trying to make any friends, are you?
No, bro, it's not like, so you and me got something in common. We can never go to Saudi Arabia. You feel me?
Yeah.
We got one thing in common, Phil. We might not agree on theology, but we got Saudi Arabia in common. We cannot take that trip. You know what I'm saying?
Seriously.
But yeah, so for instance, like I was going at Ali Dawah and Mohammed Hijab about challenging them to a debate about freeing slaves in North Africa, and like proving that a portion of their zakat goes to freeing slaves and whatnot. And I didn't even get a warning from YouTube. Page just deleted, gone. You know what I'm saying? And a second page, I had made a video back in the Tommy Robinson. It was actually Tommy Robinson tweeted out my video as one of his last tweets before his page got deleted from Twitter.
Wow, bro, last words.
Yeah, exactly. And Ali Dawah sent me a message right before that page got deleted. I was like, oh wow, okay, I see how y'all move. But like I saw that, I was like, wow, like y'all are moving in the most interesting ways that nobody's really watching, but you're moving heavy, hard, and well funded.
Gonna take a page down, yeah.
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 Yeah, that's 2 of them, bro. But he got me. They got me for 2 pages. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
So like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, so people can actually understand. Like, so for instance, I don't always agree. Well, so I'm a Quranist, so I don't really have an issue with your critiques, like in Islamicizing, because most of your critiques come from the Hadith and whatnot.
Yeah,
right?
You probably agree with like 80% of what we're saying. Even if you don't agree with the method, you probably are like, yeah, that's right.
Watch that stuff for real, because I'm like, yeah, like when I saw the camel pee come out, like I was dying, because I was like, yeah, I used to make that joke all day. Like,
what? For real, what did you say, bro?
I can't repeat that on South Channel.
Hey, come on! I went to the zoo, climbed over the fence, and went beside a camel. If I did that, you could make a joke, but whatever.
It wasn't necessarily the cleanest of jokes. You know what I'm saying? Trying to keep it clean for South Channel. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, like, so I can understand. So from the outside looking in, or from the inside looking out, actually, I can understand why you would make a lot of critiques that you make about certain forms of Islam. I can see where certain people think that you're just making fun of stuff to make fun of stuff.
Yeah.
But in reality, there is an ideology that's spreading.
Yes.
In a very quiet but efficient manner, that's able to hide out right next to you. You don't even know it in a free society.
No, you're right. I have a friend who is involved with the UN. He theorizes Turkey could take over Austria. I know, he says, I know it's a long shot. He's a very geopolitically wise guy. He's talking to me about it because, you know, there's the things going on right now between it's difficult to pronounce, but Azerbaijan. Yeah, I always have trouble with that. And Armenia and all that. Yep. And apparently the Turks are getting involved and they're sending foreign fighters and stuff like that. And, you know, people don't realize, you know, Turkey would like to have their Ottoman Empire back, you know, like, you know, there's some serious things there. You know what's fascinating about that because of all this? Check this out. And I want to get back, if we can, to the stuff with the Hadith, if you can, but check this out.
No worries.
A lot of Christians I know in the Middle East, or who are from the Middle East, obviously, if they're, anyways, you know what I'm saying? They tend to favor almost every time the dictators of the countries. It's wild. And I understand why now. It took me a while. But to a man, to a woman. And what it is the dictators of these countries are more interested in power than Islam. And so they have to give lip service to Islam. For example, Saddam Hussein. The Ba'athist Party was essentially a secular party. He started getting more religious towards the end of his life. But because of that, they want order, right? So they're not going to go out of the way to persecute or kill Christians. And they put a clamp on the hardcore Salafi because the hardcore Salafi also want to take them over. So it prevents the hardcore Salafi from being able to have free reign against the Christians or other minorities. Christians are usually the main minority. There are some others as well. So because of that, almost all Iraqi Christians I know are troubled by, they don't hate the U.S. They have mixed feelings and whatnot, but they wish the U.S. never went into Iraq, because now you can't be a Christian and live in Iraq unless basically you have a death wish. The numbers are staggering about the amount of Christians in Iraq versus what they were. And I don't know, a lot of people on this channel, a lot of people probably wouldn't care, but there's only 4 Jews left in Iraq. So I literally looked this up a couple of weeks ago. There's 4 Jews. The Iraqi Jewish community used to be a pretty big, important thing. And it's a very interesting community because that Iraqi Jewish community went back, for all intents and purposes, for all the information they have and we have, to the Babylonian captivity. They had stayed there ever since then, but now it's almost done. So it's like this war of slow attrition, and the U.S. creating a power vacuum where the dictator's gone, and then you have these little regional kind of governments and ISIS coming into the vacuum, and that's what created the problem in Syria later on. Now it's open season on Christians. So I'll give you an example. A lot of the Kurds, who are a persecuted minority in Iraq themselves, a lot of them took over a lot of the regions when Saddam was out, and they immediately started persecuting the Christians in their midst, even though they also were a persecuted minority. The first thing they do is turn to the Christians and try to get rid of them. And it's a real sad situation. And this happens time and time again. This happened in the 80s with Turkey. There was a lot of Kurds, because Kurds an ethnic minority in different countries in the Middle East. They don't have a country. A lot of Kurds went against, there was a rebellion against the government in Turkey, but there was pro-government Kurds in Turkey as well. So what happened is the Turkish government armed these Kurds, right? The pro-government ones, to fight the rebellious Kurds, right? Well, guess what? One of the first things the Kurds did, they went into the Christian villages, forced them all out, took over their property. This happened in the 80s. And there's actually a village now. I forget the name of it. These are difficult words to pronounce. There's a Turkish village with one Christian old woman left in it. Her name's the Nun. And she actually did an interview in this documentary I was just watching today to kind of check out some stuff. It's called The Last Christians. Came out in 2019. Very interesting. It's about the Assyrian people primarily, which is one of the oldest Christian communities in the world. And that is happening all over, especially with Jewish and Christian populations for the most part. And that's why a lot of the Christians are like pro. So a lot of the Christians who are Syrian, they want Assad to stay in power. You know what I'm saying? Because they view him as holding against a worse force, which are the Salafi. So you'll hear them being called freedom fighters just because they're fighting against the government. Mm-hmm. People don't understand they could be fighting against the government only to establish a radical Sharia, like almost like caliphate type rule. People don't understand that's what's happening, you know?
Yeah, that's what's kind of got me scared at the moment, in the sense where it's like, wow, like there's like particularly in the West, the concept of radical Islam has been, or extremism, etc., has been politicized to where like if you say it, you're a bad person or you're racist, or which is ridiculous because you're talking about a religion, etc.
Yep.
And like I'm saying, in a so here's the foot, like, so in the Middle East, it's actually harder for an extremist ideology to spread than it is over in the West, because in the West they actually have free speech as a vehicle to use, but they'll criticize free speech the whole time they're using it.
Right. Well, I've actually, I think Jay Smith, if I'm not mistaken, was speaking to one of a radical Salafi Muslim preacher in New York, in Times Square, in a video I saw. And he was asking about some of that. And I've heard conversations like this before. But basically, it was like the short version is pragmatic. We will use whatever means you have available to us, whether or not, forget about if we believe in it, you believe in it. So we're going to utilize it to get what we want, which is Sharia. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of view they have. And then they would no longer have it. That's why a lot of times when you see, especially demonstrations like in East London, which sometimes people call London Stand now, you'll see signs that say democracy is not of God or something like that. And people are like, I don't get that. What's that about? What they're saying is God has given us a law. Why would we go to some other kind of law made by mere men? Right. So they don't care about like how good you say it is. They just see it as a corrupting force on their youth. They're not interested in all of that. These types of folks. Now, there's folks who want that, obviously, and that's why they come to the West, like I mentioned, Zudi Jasser. And so their vibe is go back to that. And you may say, yeah, but didn't they leave that kind of situation? Well, yes, some of them, but they want to replicate their own version of it. You know, it's a very fascinating thing. And it's weird to see what's happening in Turkey. Turkey was moving secular, which usually I would say is like a bad thing. But in the case of Islamic Republic, it's a good thing. But now Turkey's going more every day to a more militant, kind of radical, hardcore kind of. It's not. It bodes very bad for the future. Pakistan has the worst blasphemy laws you can imagine on the books. There are some serious issues in some of these countries, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. You know, it's not good news though. What's happening in Syria? Not good news. There's a lot of troubles. I think Iran's influence on more and more of the Middle East is bad as well. Although then you sit around and say, well, do you want all the Middle East to be Sunni because they're one of the Shia countries? So at least they're kind of duking it out with each other, I guess. It's very complicated. Very complicated.
Extremely complicated. I'm going to play a couple video clips from that conversation you had with Robert Spencer, and then we can go back to the hadith conversation you want to. Sure, yeah. Hold on right quick, man. Let's do it like this.
You believe in a moderate Islam? If so, what does moderate Islam look like? Someone wants to ask.
I do not believe in a moderate Islam, and I cannot describe what it looks like because it never has been seen in the world, and no one has ever been able to spot it. A moderate Islam meaning the teachings of some sect involving peaceful coexistence as equals with unbelievers. There is no sect of Islam that teaches that. People talk about, we'll say, what about the Sufis? The Sufis tend to be mystical, and they put a mystical slant on things that other Muslims don't. But the Sufis have never rejected violent jihad. They've been the leaders of the Chechen jihad for a couple centuries.
So that's good information. Can we stop there? Before I go on to chapter 7, I don't know if you want to briefly address this. Someone says, the bad ideas don't come from the Quran, they come from the Hadith. So the Hadith need to be removed, and what is publicly is accepted as Islam, or at least the concept moderate Islam. They're saying, I think that if you remove the Hadith, then you'll have moderate Islam. Do you have a quick response to that before we move on?
Yeah, sure. In the first place, the Hadith, let's just make sure everybody understands, are the reports of Muhammad's words and deeds. And because the Quran says that Muhammad is the excellent example for Muslims, that's chapter 33, verse 21, then his example is normative, and where those Hadith are considered authentic, there are a lot of fakes, but where Islamic scholars consider the Hadith to be authentic, then they become normative for Islamic law. Now, there is a lot of bad material in the Hadith, and so the person writing is a Quranist.
Yes, they are. The next question group was asking if you had heard of that. Yes.
It's a small minority sect within Islam, very small, of people who believe in the Quran alone. And the problem with that is it's incoherent in a lot of ways. One is the Quran tells you repeatedly in chapter 4, verse 80, and many, many other places, to obey Muhammad, to obey Allah and his messenger. Now, the Quran only mentions Muhammad by name 4 times and tells you virtually nothing about what he was like and what he did. So how on earth can you obey the messenger without knowing anything about him? And so you got to have the Hadith. That's what the Hadith are for, so that you can obey Allah and his messenger as the Quran commands. So in the first place, that's the reason why there've never been Quranists in Islamic history, because it's an incoherent position. But also, even if you take the Quran alone, you ain't going to get moderate Islam by a long shot, because you're going to still have, when the sacred months are over, slay the unbelievers wherever you find them, slay the idolaters wherever you find them, arrest them, besiege them, lie in ambush everywhere for them. That's 9:5 of the Quran. 489, slay them wherever you find them. 2:191, slay them wherever you find them. You sensing a pattern here? 47:4, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks, that is, behead them. 8:39, fight them until religion is all for Allah. If religion is all for Allah, that means that what's the matter with the unbelievers? They must be all dead or converted to Islam. Maybe submitting to Islamic rules, since 929 tells you to fight against those who do not obey Allah and his messenger and do not forbid what he has forbidden, even if they are of the people of the book, which is primarily Jews and Christians, until they pay the jizya, the tax, with willing submission, and feel themselves subdued. So you can subdue or subjugate the Jews and Christians without making them convert. But even that then denies basic rights to the non-Muslims. So even if you take Quran only, you're going to be killing a lot of unbelievers. And that does not make for a peaceful, harmonious, pluralistic society.
Well, one last comment by this commenter, Tyvon Swanell. I do appreciate what he says. He says, I am a Muslim and very much appreciate Robert's work. Not all of it, but many of the issues that he brings up are pertinent to modern conversations on Islamic extremism. So I appreciate that perspective. He was the one asking those questions, and I thought they were good questions. And I thought you had.
Yeah, my G butchered my name. It's Tyvon Swain L. You know what I'm saying? But no worries. It's all good. But yeah, like it goes without saying that I disagree with Robert's perspective on the Quran alone. What's your perspective on Quranism, real quick?
Well, so, I learn about new elements of Islam every day. I've known about the Quranists for a while. In fact, I remember asking Elton about them, and it was sort of an eye roll situation, but I don't know much about its viability, I guess. Meaning, I do think we could be in a better position to have good conversations with Muslims, and I don't think something like Salafi would have the textual weight that it does if you had Quran only. I'm a Christian. I do not view Muhammad as a prophet or a final prophet, and so I would still have problems on a presuppositional level with the Quran's content. However, it would make the world a better place, and I think relationships a bit better as well. I think you still would have divergence amongst Islam. It's such a large religion, you're never going to have all agreement, just like with Christianity. Mm-hmm. But it would be interesting to see what you would get, because I think it might allow for more openness from some other factors that could help have a moderating effect, perhaps. I mean, so that's sort of an initial thought, but honestly, I'm still learning about it. So, whatever you want to teach me about it, I'm open to learn or hear. You know what I mean? The last thing I'll say that I do know, at least that I've heard, you can confirm or whatever, is that a lot of times Quranists only are persecuted, often killed in some of these stronger Islamic republics. That's all I know.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I definitely can't go to certain countries or whatnot. But the reason why I asked the question is because something that I've noticed, again, from my friends on Speaker's Corner and other places and whatnot, is that with the spread of Salafism, it seems to actually be like indirectly spreading Quranism in the sense to where it the people who are real devout, sometimes they end up they'll either they'll leave Islam or they become Quranist or whatnot. And what I find about that is so the only thing that makes sense to me is the only way to beat a fundamentalist ideology is with a more fundamentalist ideology. And so with people talking about I restrict my belief to the way of the Salaf or whatnot, or hadith and sunnah or whatnot, the only thing that's more fundamental than that is just the Quran, right? Or the Quran and the previous scriptures as the Quran tells you to look at.
Right.
And so for instance, right, in Surah 5, ayat 40 through 50, it gives a little dissertation on the books that were given to the Jews, the Christians, and also the Muslims and whatnot. And it specifies that there's a Sharia among all of them. So there's a Sharia for the Jews in the Torah. There's a Sharia for the Christians in the Injil. There's a Sharia for the Muslim in the Quran. And there's a manhaj and all. There's a methodology in all of them, right? So if I said that to a Salafi Muslim, they tell me I'm crazy, right? But that's in the Quran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Hadith literature and the biographical, the Surat literature seems to limit what interpretations are allowable and whatnot. I mean, honestly, I think it seems clear there's contradictory elements in some of the hadith versus what you see in the Quran. For example, this is one I can think of in a very real way. And I think this one is so important. Apostasy. If you did not have the hadith and the other associated bodies of literature, I don't think you can make a strong case that you should kill apostates. There's one place that, from what I saw, I did a deep study on this a while ago, not yesterday, so it's a conversation, that you could maybe make a case that you should do something to them now, but the other ones I all looked at seem to indicate in the afterlife, so it's not in your hands. It's not something, you don't go kill the apostate if they lose their religion. But when you get to the hadith, whoever changes their religion, kill them. You hear people quote that is not from the Quran, that is from the hadith. But everyone I know that's a Muslim, I've never heard a Muslim reject it, really. I've heard them reject it and say this, well, we can't do that now. Almost like some of the One Westerners. We're not in our power yet, so we can't kill you guys. But you always hear these guys say, well, we can't do that now. And I'll say, no, I'm not asking you if you can do that now, kill an apostate. I'm asking you if you could, would you, should you, that kind of thing. And then they have to basically say yes. That's a perfect example. What do you think of that? Because that killing people for leaving a religion is like a big deal. And I think it's a bad move, but it's not clear in the Quran at all that you should do that. It is clear in the hadith. No doubt about that. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to bring up a Quran verse on that, because like there's no possibility of you coming up with a death penalty for apostasy laws.
I think so. There's one though. I can't see. I'd have to go. I got a whole little note thing I did on this. That a person could make the argument, but I'll put it this way. I remember looking at it, and even in a talk I gave on this one time, I said the only way you could make this argument though is if you had the hadith to inform which way you should lean on the translation of it or the interpretation of it. Yeah. So I think I do agree. Naked, raw Quran by itself, I don't think you can make a valid argument that you should kill apostates. Oh, but as well I do.
It's impossible.
If you introduce a hadith though, it's game over, right?
Yeah, and so for real quick, so Surah 4 ayah 137. This is just the one shot, one kill headshot, right? Indeed, those who have believed, then disbelieved, then believed, then disbelieved, right, then increased in disbelief, never will Allah forgive them, nor will He guide them to a way. So, okay, so let me run it one more time. Indeed, those who have believed, right? Then disbelieved, that's one. Then believed. So you can't go back to believing again if I kill you for disbelieving.
Right.
But it goes further. Then disbelieved, right? Like, so it keeps going in its cycle, right? Like, so. So if there's no way you can make the argument via the Quran, right? None whatsoever. You have to use the hadith, right? And via the Quran itself, Surah 45 ayat 6, it specifies in what hadith after Allah and His verses will you choose. And so this is where I got to put. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Robert Spencer at one point in time, because I understand his point of view and how he studies Islam and whatnot. He also comes at it from the Shafi school of fiqh and whatnot, and I would love to talk to him, because he said there was never a Quranist school of thought. And what's interesting about that is Shafi actually went at the Quranists. He actually went at the hadith rejectors and whatnot. He wrote a book called Kitab Jama' al-Ilm, where he goes at the hadith rejectors. They called them the Ahl al-Kalam at the time, the people of the word, and it was the people of the word versus the people of the hadith and whatnot. And there was an 8th century theologian named Ibrahim an-Nazim, who actually started a Nazimiyya madhab. He was a Mutazilite theologian, and they're a rationalist school of thought group of people. They weren't like the Athari who were like a literalist, or the Ashari or the Maturidi who were like a blend of the two. They're straight rationalists. Their people, like they had like 3 groups of people, like ones who didn't accept hadith at all, some that did accept hadith, and some that accepted hadith of very low transmission and whatnot. But most of them, even when they took hadith, they only took the mutawatir hadith. So just for people who understand, there's multiple levels of hadith that are in their science. Like there'll be something that's like a fabricated hadith. It has like a weak isnad or a chain of narration to where like it's not consistent, so they consider it to be fabricated, or it's just a straight out fabrication. And then there's a step up to where it's weak, it's da'if or whatnot. And then there's a step up above that called Sahih. And everyone thinks that Sahih is the gold standard, but Sahih is the silver standard. Sahih is just, it just says that it's authentic or whatnot, right? The gold standard is mutawatir. Like the Quran is considered mutawatir. And there's only 322 mutawatir hadiths.
Well, hold on. Are those the ones, forgive me if I sound wrong here. Are those the ones where you have hadith where the speaker, it's a reliable chain, it's purported to be a reliable chain, and the speaker is Allah himself? Are those the ones you're referring to?
No, I think you're talking about like the Qudsi ones, but like, so the one I'm talking about, like mutawatir, is like they're massively transmitted. Like they have multiple chains of narration that are for multiple people that are all trustworthy and whatnot. Like it's something everybody knows. Like, so for instance, like everyone knows that Trump is the president, right? Like, so when he won, that's like a mutawatir news outlet saying, you know what I'm saying? Like everyone knows that, right? So
you're
like,
saying there'd be about 300 hadith if you use that standard? Is that what you're saying?
322, and if you take out the repetitions, it works out to be like 110. And half of those come from a dude named Abu Hanifa, or not Abu, but Abu Huraira, excuse me.
Oh yeah. We'd always purposely mispronounce his name as Huraira or something like that on the SALAFI.
Yeah, I get at my homies and be like, yeah, like, so the Quran says that the Quran is the best hadith, and in the same chapter it stipulates to only take the best from what Allah is giving you in revelation and whatnot. So even like, I don't tell my other friends to reject hadith, but I tell them, like, if you're gonna bring me hadith, at least bring me one that's mutawatir, because that's the same status as the Quran. But even then, like the people, like the Mutazilite people that I'm talking about from early Islam, they were the first school of theology. They were before the Athari and all, like in Ibn Hanbal and all that type of stuff, right? Those people, like, they would take the mutawatir hadith, but even if it went against the Quran, they would throw it away, right? Because even with the mutawatir hadith, right, for instance, there's hadith that say you can stone people for fornication or whatnot, where the Quran doesn't say you can stone people. Which is, it trips me out, because like that one, I'm like, that one alone, like, it doesn't matter what level hadith you go to, there's something that contradicts the Quran.
I remember one of the books Elton Simpson gave me was a collection of his 40 favorite hadith from like a scholar he respected who would compile a collection. He gave me my first Quran that I own, and he gave me a collection of 40 hadith. And he would always talk about this teacher he had because of how many hadith he knew and how he knew, you know, which ones were authentic and all this. But it's funny because I can tell you the actual Muslims at that mosque I would talk to, I would say, well, this says this in the hadith. And I would have guy after guy not believe me. They'd be like, Muhammad never said that. And I would show them something that was like in Bukhari and Muslim, something that would be established, and they would see it and they'd be like, well, I have to look at that. You'd be surprised at some people say, you know, you got a fake copy of the hadith. You're trying to trick me. That's a typo, all kinds of stuff, because they couldn't believe, you know, some of the stuff that would be in the hadith collections. And then they would tell me some story, and I knew that it was from some weak hadith, but there's some teacher told it to them, and it had some kind of emotional like appeal. So it resonated with them. So they would repeat the story. There was a total weak hadith. There was no way it was authentic, but that would be valid just basically because they liked it. And I ran into that again and again. It's really frustrating to kind of deal with this stuff sometimes. A fascinating thing. Or you'd have this thing where they'd be like, okay, if it's in Bukhari and Muslim, it's legit. I'll accept it. But then you'll show them something that's in both of those, and if they don't like it or it's contradictory to something in the Quran, they don't know how to fix it yet. Well, I don't accept them all. You're not a science. You don't know the hadith science. I was like, yeah, but you just told me if it's in these two, then it's very frustrating. It was like this game of cat and mouse or something like that. Sometimes with some of these are people who are knowledgeable, but not hadith scholars type of thing, you know. And some were not very knowledgeable, you know, as well, but they were very strident. So I realized, man, some of these people, bro, that sheikh could literally tell them anything and they'll believe it. I kind of like realized that with some of these guys.
Yeah.
Their real connection to God in their mind is like this guy, whatever he says. I was like, this is a dangerous system.
Yeah.
They're not really relying on their own understanding. This guy will tell them anything and they will think it's true. You know?
Yeah. So this is something that got me when I first came into Islam, was the fact that I assumed that they out of everyone knew their book the best, because you see people reciting in Arabic, this, that, and the third.
Right.
And then I found out, oh, like people just learn how to recite in Arabic and don't even know what they're saying, because they think
totally.
They were told that learning how to recite the Arabic is just an extra blessing you get tacked on going to heaven. And I was like, oh,
yeah, especially if you say it during certain times of Ramadan.
Yeah,
bonus round, bro. Bonus points.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so, for instance, my mother's part of my mother's family is Catholic or whatnot, right? And so we would always joke on like how much the Catholics don't read their Bible or whatnot. They read missals. They read missals instead of the Bible or whatnot.
Right.
But I was shocked because like Muslims don't know the Quran. Like they literally don't know it. And when you tell, like, I could tell them something from the Quran, like, well, what verse is that? What verse is that? But if I say a hadith, they all know the hadith. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, yo, that's scary. I was like, yo, that's scary, fam. Yo, that's double scary.
Yep. You start to realize the hadith is really more important than some of these guys, and some of these guys like worldview than the actual Quran. And then I would run into all these guys who it seems like they spent their time running around the internet looking for rulings from guys they respected. So they wanted to find out what's the fatwa on Facebook and what's the fatwa, and what's the fatwa on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of their life, it seemed like, was spent like not reading either of their sources and reading these fatwas so they can figure out what they're allowed to do. Can I shave my legs? All this kind of stuff.
Right.
Like, I kid you not, man.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing about a Quran is I don't do none of that. Right? So the Quran tells me if I have a question about anything, like I'm supposed to go to the people of the previous scripture. I got to go to the previous books to get understanding on it. Right.
Do you take that as the Old New Testament?
Yeah. 100%. Because it also calls the Torah a criterion, a statute book.
Right.
And so it says it was sent down to give guidance prior to it, whatnot. And so, I'm directed to look back towards those books to make things make sense or whatnot.
So what do you do if you have an apparent conflict between them?
Like what?
Well, I don't know if you ever saw the mildly offensive but also very truthful Boom Boom Room, where Muhammad's character meets two One Westers. And they bring up, oh, well, you might not have me on ever again once you watch that, but we bring up we bring up real issues such as this. Why does it appear you're allowed to eat camel meat?
No, it doesn't use the word for camel in Arabic. And then it also directly tells you in another surah that what was made lawful for the Israelites to eat is made lawful for you. But no,
okay.
It doesn't. But the Quran does not authorize eating camel meat.
So a lot of Muslims that's okay. A lot of Muslims I think would disagree. Well, not everybody.
Oh yeah, and bring him here. We'll have the debate, and I'll show it to him in Arabic, and we have a good laugh. Arabic and Hebrew, because the word for camel in Arabic is the same word for camel in Hebrew.
Okay, well, see, that's an interesting discussion right there. Okay, hold on,
real quick, but that's also an instance to where I would have to go back to the previous criterion to get clarity, because it specifies what's made lawful for them is made lawful for you, right? So I would have to go back to the Torah to understand what's made lawful for them, and it double clarifies that they definitely can't eat camel.
What is your perspective on? Do you believe that the Jews possessed during Muhammad's day the actual Tanakh or the actual Torah? Take your pick. Which is
100%.
So you wouldn't view them as possessing a corrupt book that they had altered?
No, and the Quran doesn't make the claim that the Torah was corrupt or the Tanakh was corrupt. It says that.
I agree with you. You don't have to convince me. I'm just because the Hadith. Well, I agree with you. That's fascinating to hear.
He literally tells them to recite, like Muhammad. There's a verse where Muhammad tells them to recite their Torah to him and says, "Bring your proofs if you are truthful."
Yeah, and he talks about the book in your hand, or
exactly what they have with them in their hand. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. What about? So the Quran itself doesn't mention anything about Paul, but later on, Islamic polemicists have a big problem with Paul.
Yeah.
What's your view on Pauline writings?
My view on Pauline writings is that Paul is not a prophet, and so whatever he says, you got to take through the lens of the previous prophet, which would be Jesus or whatnot. And so I think that if you go to Paul before you go to Jesus, you're going to have a few issues sometimes.
What do you have a category for a role or office called an apostle?
Yeah, because it's in the previous scripture.
Well, when you say previous scripture, you don't mean the Old Testament, do you? It's in the Gospels, if you mean that, I guess.
No, yeah, like no, the Injil is the previous scripture.
Okay, so I'm just well, there's interesting things to discuss there because what about well, if this is your position, I mean, where can you go to masjid at? How can you be part of the larger you know,
what you talking about? I got to go to Phoenix, bro. Go kick it with the Quranist down there. You know they got the they got the one Quranist mosque in Arizona, bro.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Hold on,
I thought there was one in Tucson.
Oh yeah, it is in Tucson. You're right, it is in Tucson.
You're talking about? I think. Let me see. Look it up. Do you know the name?
It was the one that Rashad Khalifa started.
Is that the one with the dude that got murdered?
Yeah.
In the kitchen. That's Tucson.
Yeah,
that's funny you said that. That's funny you said that. I was like, it's in Phoenix. So Tucson's about 2 hours away. It's like the second biggest city outside of the Phoenix environs. You know, there's cities surrounding Phoenix that are bigger than Tucson actually. But as far as a distinct geographical, Tucson, you know, U of A, whatever. And yeah, that thing still functional? Because I know that guy, you know, he was murdered.
I believe it still is. Because
then you got to come to Tucson, bro.
I might have to do it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, like, so here's the funny thing, like, so his murder was actually Al Qaeda's first terrorist attack in America.
Oh, is that right? I knew it was some kind of terrorist, but I didn't know the full detail. Didn't they kill him for his views on things? They viewed him as like a liberal corrupter or something.
Yeah, he was going in like he was going like he took the Quran and put it through a computer program and like found like some algorithms in that joint. It was like he found where he made predictions on where words were misspelled. He made predictions on verses that were inserted that shouldn't be inserted. He was going in, and he was actually proven to be right after he was killed, which was actually a trip.
I heard about that guy. You know, he sounded like an interesting, unique guy.
Yeah.
And that situation was tragic, man. Just tragic. He didn't deserve to be murdered. Like, I mean, nobody. It just is a tragic situation, man.
No, but see, that's the thing about trying to identify or properly identifying what extremism looks like in terms of ideology and whatnot, because people can walk around freely and do all kind of stuff, and you don't know what's going on because they sound okay. They can blend in and whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's crazy. You know, we're talking about stuff happening in the United States. I mean, it's like. It almost seems like there's almost nowhere, gosh, I don't know. It almost seems like there's nowhere safe in the world from the reach of Islamic extremists, to be honest with you. You can basically be anywhere, and if they want to, they can find a way to get you or at least try to get you.
See, this is why I was trying to talk about the concept. Let's see what you thought about the concept. Like, so obviously we disagree on theology. You're a Christian, I'm a Muslim, etc., whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh, just real quick, just as a side note. So I also do believe, like, or the Quran specifies that Jesus died on the cross. Like, it's like that. We can get into a long conversation, but no, like it gets into like the death and resurrection all in the Quran.
Well, it does seem to indicate he's going to raise again, and it doesn't make sense unless he's. I mean, hey, all right.
So there's a conversation where Allah literally says, like, one day he will terminate his life and raise him to him, and then Jesus says, "Blessed be the day I'm born, the day I die, and the day I will be raised alive."
Exactly.
And it specifies like so. It specifies the manner of death in the Quran, right? And that's when people get misconstrued. Like, and that's where they go to the Hadith to make the crazy translations and whatnot. But it says there will be those who say that they killed Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah, but they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. Crucifying being the manner of death. Not that they didn't put him up on the cross, right? But he was raised to Allah is what they say the manner of death was. Like right in line with, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit, and thus give up the ghost.
Well, you are probably the first person I've ever met in my life who describes himself as a Muslim who actually says Jesus Christ died on the cross.
Yep.
I think you are the first one I have ever. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to sit down with some more Quranists, bro.
Well, I don't.
And you know what?
The only one I knew in Arizona is dead. I mean,
to be fair, so I also came out of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I came out the temple. I proclaimed in 2015, but I left in 2016. But they're the only Muslim school of thought that I know specifically says, as part of their theology, that Jesus died on the cross.
Well, I don't know a ton of Moors around this way. I know that's part of your name. People were asking what's up with the name, the new people in the live chat. But
there are Moors out in Arizona, though.
I'm sure there are. I mean, but I haven't, not yet. I remember when I was in Harlem looking for GMS, I saw a couple guys with the Fez caps walking by out there on 125th, and I was like, no, I gotta stay on focus. We're gonna go talk to Tahar right now. We don't want to get distracted by the Moors.
So okay, so you had NOI friends, you had 5%er friends, you knew Salafi Muslims and whatnot. What's your position on the Moors? You're about to go kick it with the Quranist apparently. So what's your position on the Moors?
That's the one of the things that's an alternative for people in the cities and whatnot that I know the least about. So I don't act like I know a ton about it because it's still like sort of arm's length in a way. So I kind of just pick up things in there. I got some resources I haven't really been able to crack open. So, if I was going to talk to a Moor, I would probably be asking them more, just asking them questions and stuff like that versus really going in. Cause you got to understand before you take those next steps, and then try to always be understanding. So I don't know a lot. I don't want to speak out of ignorance on that right now.
What's your current understanding of what they believe?
Well, it seems like there's this claim that they're Muslims, and it seems like there's a strange edition they have that they call the Quran, and it seems like they also, make a nationality, ethnic claim that I'm confused at this point how it could fit with someone who would say they're also a Hebrew Israelite, and it seems like there's some ties with old school Masonic temple stuff, perhaps. And they don't seem to be really growing. Those are some of the things I would say that I seem to know about them.
You put it on. He said they don't seem to be growing. He said y'all are stagnant, bro.
They don't. I mean, Hebrew Israelites are growing. NOI is,
stale. He said I don't even worry about y'all because y'all are stale, bro.
Well, no, I'm not saying I don't care. They don't seem to be growing unless you got different information. They don't seem to be growing, bro.
No, I don't. No, I don't disagree with you. Like that. That's one of the reasons why I left the temple. And there's amongst others, so another reason why I left the temple is because it became prominent that a lot of the leadership was mixing NOI doctrine with the doctrine that was there.
Can't beat them, join them, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing, and it kind of poisoned the well for me in a lot of ways. So
you didn't want to be NOI.
Yeah, if I wanted to be NOI, I'd be NOI. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I definitely did not want to be like I'm not a racist or whatnot. I don't believe salvation is based upon nationality or skin tone and other type of things or whatnot. Which is another reason why I actually wanted to have this conversation, because I hear that a lot in what you talk about in terms of nationalism and religion and whatnot. So what's your views on nationalism and religion?
Well, it depends really what you mean by that. So when you say nationalism and religion, help me understand what you're, because I think that's the last thing we wanted to talk about tonight. What do you mean by that? Because I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, so for instance,
the Jews, for instance, right? The people of Jewish tradition, like there's a nationalism involved in their religion in the sense to where their religion is tied to their ethnicity. It's tied to how they treat other people of the same tradition, etc. The ones who were devout, etc. What I'm saying. There are some people who believe that they're the chosen people of God based upon their tradition. Mm-hmm. There's some people, amongst the Hebrew Israelites who believe that unless you're an Israelite, you don't have salvation. That salvation is based upon your nationalism or your nationality. Some people like them. Okay. No, some people like the Moorish, for instance, that they teach that everyone should know their nationality and should worship underneath their nationality, but nobody's superior to anyone else, etc. Whatnot. So I typically hear a lot of your issues with people when they talk about needing nationality for salvation or supremacy concepts. So I just wanted to hear what your perception was on that.
Right. So I try to have a Christian view or stance perspective on these things. And hey, I don't know what just happened. Maybe you muted yourself. Oh yeah, you muted yourself. So okay, it's quiet, but you're still there. Okay, gotcha. And so because of that, I see what the Christian church is supposed to be is something that's transnational, transcultural. I'm not saying it wipes out who you are. Okay, I'm not saying that becomes irrelevant and we become uniform, although we are supposed to have unity. And so I do take seriously what I see pictured in Revelation 5 and Revelation 7. That's the culmination of what is supposed to be representative of who we are. That's why I bring up those specific places. And in Revelation 5 and Revelation 7, there's other verses like that. I'm just giving an example. There's sort of a throne room scene there, and you have the idea that God is present, and you have people from all over who are worshiping together. And I think that's really important. The actual verse says this: you were slain, verse 9 of chapter 5, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language, people, and nation. You have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on your earth. So you take that as well as the Revelation 7 one, as I mentioned, and interesting phrases such as Paul uses, I believe, in the book of Philippians, which speaks about our citizenship being in heaven. And you take that with John 18, where Jesus says, what's he say to Pilate? Hey, if my kingdom was of this world, then I would have an army right now trying to fight to get me free. So he doesn't deny that he's a king. Notice that. He does deny the source is of this world. He doesn't deny that he has a kingdom either. He's saying the source of it is not this world. And that's why we go about things in a different way. I don't think Jesus is advocating pacifism there. I'm not a pacifist, but I do hold loosely to something that the African Christian writer came up with that's called just war theory, which I believe is a generally speaking proper application of biblical principles to war and whatnot. I do believe it's okay to have nations. In fact, I believe in Acts chapter 17, you see Paul speak there, and he indicates that actually the country of your birth, the era in which you live is actually sovereignly decreed by God. Let me show you the verse. I'm speaking of verse 26 and 27. He made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. They see God. So I see there actually, you could even say a tacit recognition of the validity of borders, for example. Now, these are temporal things, in cities and nations and states and all that. But this idea of one global humanity or something like that living prior to the kingdom of Christ, I don't think is what we're supposed to strive for. And I think it's based upon an ignorant view of human nature and simply not real. It will never happen. It's impossible. And so nations, I think, are okay and part of the reality of this era. But you see that Christianity, while recognizing those, and then you put that along with the conversation of Romans, and that's not the only place. You also have Jesus, where he says, hey, give it to Caesar if it's Caesar, and if it's God, give it to God. It shows really a kind of a separation of church and state, I do believe, which is something missing in most Islam, for example. And you look at that and you say, okay. And then you add, I mentioned Romans 13, especially verses 1 through 7, submission to authorities as long as they don't violate the word of God. And you can see that walked out in Acts 4, where they're like, hey, you decide, should we obey God, obey man? The answer for the Christian is obvious. It's a rhetorical question, right? So you look at all that and you say, okay, so submission to authorities, as long as it's not violating the command of God, we're sovereignly determined where we're supposed to be. We're to go to all nations, bringing the gospel. That could include your own nation. And I think nation can, there's other ways to understand it, where you understand partially the element of people groups present. So there's people groups within nations. And I think Acts 1 even recognizes that, where it says Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria. So it's like people right next to you who are like you, people out farther who are not, who are like you, and then people who are close to you but are not like you. So Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then it says to, ends of the earth and all that kind of thing. So like you look and you realize those are very real concepts. and we try to be respectful. And the early Christians had to deal with this. You know, Justin Martyr is writing letters to the emperor as if he's going to pay attention, saying, hey, we're good citizens. We pray for you. Why are you trying to kill us? And of course, they killed Justin Martyr. That's how he got his last name. So you look at that, and you see a tradition of Christians wanting to be submissive, but also willing to rebel, but not to hurt or to kill, but to do what God tells us to do. But we ultimately see that we're transnational and we're transcultural, meaning we supersede those things, not that we do away those things. So we still recognize each other for who we are in Christ, whether we're of African or Native American or whatever descent or background we may be. That's something to glory in and celebrate because of the diversity and beauty of God's creation as his image bearers go forth with different expressions of his image, I do believe. And that concept is rooted in Genesis 1:26-27. But when we mix and match in a way that is too intertwined, whatever our nation or country or some other identity we're holding on to, I'm speaking specifically here of Christianity, that becomes a problem. And then you say things like, my country, right or wrong. Well, if you just mean it's your country that you're living in, okay. But it sounds like what you're saying, whether it's right or wrong, I'm going to be on their side. It doesn't matter. No, it's no, I want my right. And if they're wrong, then we stand against them, you know, like right. That's what John Brown thought, you know, the guy who rated Harper's Ferry. That was his understanding. There's a different view. So like, I think
shout out to John Brown. My cousin's actually named after him right quick, you know. So.
Oh, for real? I see they're making a mini series on him with Ethan Hawke. Man, I want to watch that thing. It looks hilarious. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, he was about that life. But yeah, go ahead.
He wasn't playing, man. People were not ready for John Brown. You're not ready for John Brown. So, you know, you look at that, and those are some of the issues I have. So now there are different Christian theories of government and then how we should interact with the state. And I think Christians of good conscience can talk about that and discuss that and have some differences in their views. And that is something that's been discussed for a long time. People really trying to hash out. So there are people who hold to something called theonomy. And there's other people who would be pacifist and people who think we should have no involvement at all. Some people think we should exert Christian influence on government, but in a way that is strictly basically working within the system. Other people, you know, there's all these kinds of different discussions and talks, and there's different intellectual streams you can find. And I think it's important not to violate conscience in those. I think some are out of bounds, but some I think can be, although variegated, nonetheless valid expressions of Christian theology. Those are things a lot of us still work through, or that a lot of us haven't thought about that as well. You know, like I got here's a book, God and Politics, 4 Views on the Reformation of Civil Government, which is an interesting book, you know, so it's an example of a book where you can kind of see some of the different perspectives here, principled pluralism, theonomy, Christian America, national confessionalism, you know, some of the responses that are laid out, and then they interact with each other. And there's other views as well. Like here's a pretty big book on the topic, Politics According to the Bible by Wayne Grudem. He opts for something that he just phrases as significant Christian influence on government. Doesn't necessarily specify a type of government, but just how we should be active within a responsible manner. But then there's people like the Amish, for example, that have a much different expression about what they think is right. And I think that's interesting. But a hardcore kind of nationalism creates problems. It creates some really, really big problems. And I think that's something that can be out of bounds. And honestly, I think that's fading away. I think that was an issue. I'm not saying it's gone in America. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying because I think there's less of a Christian influence. So kind of the Christian nationalist, I think, is going to be a smaller and smaller thing. I'm not saying it's gone or it's not zealous, but I think that eventually the secularists are going to dominate over that kind of mindset anyway, at least in America. That's my thought, but who knows? We'll see. But,
yeah, you said something that inspired a question for me. So you said that when Jesus was talking about paying to Caesar's what is Caesar's and God's what is God's. That was talking about a separation of church and state that you don't see in Islam, etc. Break that down for me very quick.
What?
Break that down for me very quick. So
Jesus is recognizing in some way legitimate authority of Caesar. You know, that's why he busted it out, much to their chagrin, the coin. And the idea is, okay, whose image and inscription is on this, right? And Caesar's, well, then give to Caesar. Basically saying, and we see Jesus pay tax. You know, he said, well, hey, look, I'm Jesus. This is a short version. I'm Jesus. I don't really need to pay tax, but we don't want nobody tripping out here, so let's pay our tax. That's a short version. But the indication is, hey, we need to pay our tax. Notice Jesus never badmouthed tax collectors. It was the corrupt tax collectors, like Zacchaeus. His problem wasn't that he was strictly a tax collector per se. It was him ripping off the people. Jesus never apparently told him to quit his job or anything. It's just like, hey, pay those people back and do it right. In fact, John the Baptist, gave instructions about how to function properly as a Roman soldier. They don't be beating up people when you're abusing your authority. It's like he's talking to cops, basically. Hey, stop beating up people. You could be a good cop. Stop tripping. Like John the Baptist is saying that kind of thing to Roman soldiers at the time, So Jesus is saying that. But I think there's an interesting point I've heard made, and I tend to resonate with it, which is this. When he says given to Caesar what is Caesar's, and he's pointing to the image and inscription, and that has to do with paying your tax, basically. It means you recognize the authority and their ability to have infrastructure and your requirement as a citizen to support it. And everyone's always going to think taxes are too high. It just is what it is, and they're always going to go up too. But when he says give to God's what is God's, here's what's fascinating. Whose image and inscription is on us? Meaning, here's this coin, Caesar's. There's a level of ownership and authority. The image of God is stamped on people. So I take him as saying a little bit more than just a separation of church and state, as sort of a principle. And I mean that in the right way. I don't mean it in the ACLU kind of way. I probably might have to explain that. I mean basically where you don't have a Christian theocracy necessarily is what I'm saying. It seems to militate against. But I'm not saying like the way, we can't pray in school. I'm not saying that's what I'm saying either. But Jesus, I think, is also saying, hey, and your gods, give your whole self to God, which, by the way, of course, is the first commandment, because the image and inscription of God is on every man and woman, Genesis 1:26-27. But then with Islam, what I was saying there is Muhammad was a general. He was a politician or a ruler. He was a religious leader or authority. He was everything. So, he establishes all things all at once. And that's why the Quran itself is filled with, different kind of rulings and legalities and case law. Now, someone could say, well, yeah, that's in the Tanakh as well. It is. The thing is, there is no new covenant kind of conception in Islam. There is in Christianity. And so that's why in 1 Corinthians 5, it's a perfect example. In 1 Corinthians 5, you see there's somebody who's being sexually immoral in the church. If the church community was identical to the community of Israel in the Old Testament, that person in 1 Corinthians 5 should have been stoned. Paul says excommunicate them from the church. It shows you the difference in the covenant community versus the old and the new covenant. And so I bring that out, but I don't find that same kind of ability to separate those things out in Islam, even if you take away the hadith. Now, I don't know what the picture would look like exactly with a Quranic only kind of government, but it seems like you would still have some kind of Sharia-like situation. And also, I don't know how you could totally discount all the things about the caliphate and all this. I don't know what you would do. That'd be interesting. But, to Westerners, we think separation of church and state, which I think largely is really a Christian principle. Islam doesn't think that way. That's good. That's almost like a blasphemous thought. Of course you apply Quranic law and hadith and all that to modern day rulings and whatnot. Of course you do. What do you mean separation of mosque and state? That's crazy. We're not going to do that. That's my thought. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there is a way you can have do you think the Quran can support, for example, a democratically free society?
Yeah,
you do.
Oh yeah. But at the same point in time, there's still a theocratic bent to it, and that's why I was asking the question, because like when you were talking about the two coins or whatnot, or render what is God's and Caesar, etc., whatnot. To me, I'm seeing a recognition of the theocratic government in the Bible, because when they're paying the temple tax, that's like the census that they would take every year to where they were commanded to actually have their own shekel set apart, their own temple or their own sanctuary shekel and whatnot, right? Separate from, like I'm saying, like their money should have looked different than Caesar's money, right? So I'm seeing it as a recognition of the theocracy, whatnot. So, for instance, like when you're talking about Revelation 7 and whatnot, I'm seeing like the 144,000 getting sealed and people getting called over to a land and serving in a form of a theocratic government and whatnot, right? However, in Islam and whatnot, specifically when it comes to the Jews and the Christians, it specifies that the Injil and that the Torah were given for you guys as statute books to be able to govern yourselves with, right? And that we shouldn't govern you by anything other than that, right? And so for anyone else, like let's say like an atheist or whatever, like the Quran specifies there's no compulsion in religion, and unto you your way and unto me mine, right? So you would still pay taxes into the government, right? Like maybe under the jizya and whatnot, right? But you're not gonna be forced to have to practice some form of religion and whatnot.
Do you think that government should have people pay the jizya?
I think that any government is going to need some form of taxation in order to survive. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah,
so the jizya tax.
Who pays the jizya though?
That would be anybody who's not Muslim.
Right. So this is not just a normal tax. This is a tax based upon your religious conviction, strictly.
No, like so the jizya is a willing concept, right? Like so, for instance, like my mother comes from North African Jews that went through Spain and then came to Mexico and whatnot, right? And so in like 711 AD, you got Jews like sending word out to Moors out in West Africa, like to go help them out right quick, and they're willingly going to pay them the jizya tax or whatnot. Jizya literally goes back to a Hebrew word izabun, which is almost like a sales tax kind of a concept, right? So it's in the Quran, it's a willing thing, it's not a forceful thing.
So
you're not mandated to, right? Like so for instance, if you wanted to be an atheist in an Islamic society or whatnot, under the Quran or whatnot, right? If you wanted to be a citizen there, you would have to pay to be a part of it.
Okay, so what's your understanding of the places in the Quran where the jizya appears?
So
I only know of one.
Yeah, it only appears in Surah 9.
Okay, and what it says, as you very well know, fight those who believe not in God in the last day, and who do not forbid what God and his messenger have forbidden, and who follow not the religion of truth among those who were given the book till they pay the jizya, with the willing hand being humbled.
With the willing hand, right?
All right, but
so jizya can only be accepted voluntarily. It's not a forceful thing, right?
Now that's the study Quran translation. But other translations say subdued. That doesn't sound very willing, right?
So, okay, the concept of the open hand or whatnot, or the concept of the subduing or whatnot, right? Like all has to do with the concept of being at war, or the whole concept of Surah 9 period, which is when people, it all starts off when people you've made a treaty with violate the treaty, right? So do
you only have the jizya during a time of war then?
It's not mandated, no. Like so this is what I'm saying about someone who would want to voluntarily be part of the society. So if you want to be protected as a citizen, like if you want to patriate or expatriate to another country, right, and you want to be a citizen in their society, you got to follow certain rules or whatnot, right? So if I want to be protected, like so historically, right, like so again, like what I was saying about my people, my mother's people in Spain and whatnot, right, when they paid the jizya and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? They, like you said earlier, like they were still able to participate in all forms of society in the golden era. They were able to be officials and all them kind of things and whatnot. But the jizya tax gave them protection. Like so, you could go to the mosque in Cordoba, right, and go right down the street and see where the Jewish quarter starts and where they have a huge synagogue and whatnot. So the jizya gives them religious protection to practice their religion in the area, and so it also gives them. So the dhimmi concept makes it to where historically they didn't have to fight in war, but they still got protected by the state. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no. They're not allowed to fight because Surah 551.
Explain.
Well, most people have taken that as, you can't have them be your friends or your protectors. And
yeah, so you can't. So the guardian,
they're not allowed to fight in the military because they can't be your protector.
No, they can totally fight in the military. So historically, this is literally what happened. Like so, again, when I'm talking about people being called in from West Africa to Spain and whatnot. Literally, when you get to Toledo, the Israelites and the Moors are fighting together. The Jews open up the gates for them, and they fight together against the Christians.
I thought you don't use hadith or historical situations to interpret the Quran, though.
So I'm not talking about interpreting the Quran. I'm talking about history at this juncture, and I don't use hadith for jurisprudence.
Yeah, but if we're going to do that, then we've got to look at other things like the Pact of Umar. You're giving a positive example, but how about the Pact of Umar is a very negative and probably much more dominant example than what you're speaking about. And it does not allow, these folks to be policemen or military.
Right. So here's the point.
Have you read the Pact of Umar ever?
A minute ago, but here's the point. So if you're saying
you
that
can't even have a weapon, bro. If you're not a Muslim, you can't even have a weapon.
Hold on, bro. I'm saying something right quick. So if you're saying that the Quran specifies in one spot to where you can't take them on to even fight with you in war, you're talking about a hadithist perspective, because the Quran specifies you can't take them as a guardian, right? It's a whole different thing. Right?
How do you interpret that? See?
No, the guardian. So the Muslims going into Spain were becoming the guardians. So it wasn't the Muslims going to Spain saying we want you to rule here, right? So it's a different concept. That's what I'm saying. So if they're not trying to be the guardian or whatnot, there's no issue with fighting with them in terms of like taking on enemies together and whatnot.
Okay, I'm not sure I fully necessarily understand or agree, but do you see how you still have this concept of jizya, which is a religious tax? It's only on non-Muslims. It's not on Muslims. So there's a class of people exempted from paying tax strictly because of their religion. So it'd be like this. Imagine if all of a sudden President Trump is like, hey, if you declare yourself a Christian, no more tax. I'm not talking about, churches, 501c3. I'm saying if you say I'm a Christian, no more taxes.
So you don't believe in theocratic taxes is what you're saying.
Everybody else tax. I don't think theocratic. Well, first of all, that's not a theocracy. That's just allowing an exception. So
hold on. So you got me confused right now, because I thought the whole thing was that Islam was a theocracy.
Islam, the only valid form of government is some kind of theocratic rule within Islam.
So I'm asking
if
you disagree with the concept of theocratic taxation.
Well, I don't agree with the idea of theocracies. Well, first of all, I mean, to be frank, I don't think there's a true God behind the Quran. So they could call it a theocracy, but God's not in the picture. It's just a God.
Right. That's why I'm asking about theocratic taxation. I'm talking about Islam right there.
Well, I don't think. I mean, it's just simply you can call it what you want, but it's just religious discrimination. If you're saying you people pay taxes, this other group of people, because of their religious beliefs, don't have to pay taxes, that's just religious discrimination. That's not just taxation. That's a financial punishment for not believing in a certain religion. That's what that is. I don't see how that's anything but religious discrimination.
That's your reading of the text. We just disagree on the reading of the text.
If that happened in America right now, I guarantee you would. What if Trump came out tomorrow and said, I'm going to double taxes on all people who in any way are associated with the Hebrew Israelites?
So when are we fair? So, hold on. No. So look at the context. So so is Trump at war with the Hebrew Israelites?
Let's say he said that he thought they were. Let's say, okay.
Do they have a peace? Do they have a peace treaty that they violated? First and foremost,
the Surah 9 doesn't say all this stuff.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, sir. See, this is the way people try to read it, but that's why the Hadith do become important, because that's not really what you're saying. And notice, here's the real thing about this.
Hold on. So your position, your position is that Surah 9 is not having to do with people who violate a peace treaty.
Bro, Muhammad is violating peace treaties all the time.
I asked you a specific question about Surah 9, not your perception of Muhammad.
Surah 9:29. The issue with the people there is what
the Surah 9 start in verse 29, or does it have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Specifically, when you get to 29, it's speaking about what they believe.
So is there a treaty? Real quick, within the first 5 verses, are they talking about treaties, yes or no?
Yeah, of course they talk about treaties.
Okay, so why is what I'm saying not applicable?
Because it says, fight those who disbelieve. It doesn't say those who disbelieve and violate a peace treaty. It doesn't say anything like that. And it's talking about, well, wait a minute.
Who are those who disbelieve?
Hold on. So you're trying to say you only pay the jizya if you violated a peace treaty or if you're at war. But let's just say that's the case. Let's just go there with that. You still have a case where only non-Muslims have to pay this. And I don't see why you think that's not just raw, naked religious discrimination.
So that's what I was about to ask you. Who are the disbelievers?
Well, so you have to look at other spots for that. I think the Quran's answer ultimately is not consistent. But here, right here, it's saying if you're a person of the book but not a Muslim. So right here in Surah 929, it's Jews and Christians, because it says, I'm gonna read Sahih International.
Let's do it.
Who have made unlawful and who do not adopt the religion of the truth from those who were given the scripture. So the way this is traditionally interpreted is, out of the people of the book who are yet not Muslim, you extract the jizya from them. This is not even telling you what to do with pagans. And I think really that's ultimately because that's why pagans end up dead in most Islamic societies. You know, what this isn't even telling you what to do with pagans and atheists. This is just telling you what to do with Jews and Christians. You know what I'm saying? So how is it fair to say, hey guys, we're at war, so only this group of people has to pay taxes? Like, if again, let's say America went to war tomorrow with North Korea, and let's say that Trump came out and said, oh, let's do this better. Iran.
Sure.
Going to war with Iran. So if you're a Sahih Muslim, you got to pay the jizya, right? So he makes only Muslims who are Sahih, or I'm sorry, did I say Sahih? I meant to say Shia. I'm getting confused with the translation I'm looking at. No. He only makes Shia Muslims pay a special tax because we're at war and that's who we're fighting, right? Do you think that would be fair? He makes all the Shia Muslims pay an extra tax?
It's a non sequitur because it's not the same concept.
Well, yeah, explain to me then. I don't understand how it's not the same concept.
So let's read this. And first of all, the concept is you're talking about people who violated the treaty, right? And were fighting against you when it's supposed to be a peace treaty, right?
So who violated the treaty in your reckoning?
So this can be anyone at this juncture, right? So if you want to get historical, we can deal with the history. But real quick, I'm gonna read this verse real slow for the people. Fight those who do not believe in the law or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what the law and his messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. So it says who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. That's anyone who's a Jew, a Sabian, you know what I'm saying? Christian, Muslim. That's not taxing the non-Muslims. That's taxing people who are not of the book. Right. So this is specifically in a war situation, right? However, a jizya is there, right? And a jizya is a willing concept. It's a voluntary concept. They don't got to pay it. They don't got to not fight you. Like, so it also says in the same chapter, if they don't fight you, you got to stop fighting them, etc. Right?
Fight against those who
rules of
war.
Allah. So there's no difference in the description of the rules of war here in the Quran than what you talked about as being a just war. None of them are offensive. Everything is defensive. Right?
That's what the apologists say. But look at what it actually says.
That's what the Quran says. It says we had this conversation the first time we talked, where it specifies that law is not what the aggressor would, right?
Right, but look at what it actually says on your screen. Fight against those who do what? Do not do what?
Who do not believe in the law on the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what the law and his messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture.
So 4 strikes against them, and it's basically saying you don't believe in Islam. And it says.
So are you saying Christianity is Islam?
No, I'm not. Christianity.
So who are those given the scripture?
That's the point. It's saying
this is you trying to shoehorn a hadithist concept into a verse that's clearly not saying that.
Well, let me go to noblequran. Let me go to noblequran.com. I don't have an
who was given the scripture.
Let's go to noblequran.com.
Who was given the scripture, bro?
Let me read noblequran.com. And
were the Jews and the Christians given the scripture? Yes or no?
Yes, that's what it says. I don't. Maybe you're not understanding what I'm.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is if you're not a Muslim, you got to pay the jizya, and that's not what I'm reading here. I'm reading here like, you know what I'm saying, if you're not rocking with the people of the scripture, you know what I'm saying. So help me understand what you're saying right quick.
It's saying if you disbelieve and you're out of the people of the book, it's saying those are the people of the book who don't believe in Islam are the ones who have to pay. It's Jews and Christians.
Where does it say Islam? Where does it say Islam anywhere in the verse?
Okay, let's go to, like I said, if you could go to noblequran.com. Let's go to Surah 9. I'm going to read it as it appears on the screen. fight against those who, one, and it has a little parentheses, believe not in Allah, two, nor in the last day, three, nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and his messenger, four, and those who acknowledge not the religion of truth, and it has in parentheses, i.e. Islam, among the people of the scripture, and has in parentheses, Jews and Christians, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued.
So
I'm not shoehorning anything. I am reading what is on my screen by a translator, noblequran.com. I didn't have to search hard to find this because this is how they interpret it. And this lets you know. You're acting like I'm crazy. This is what it says. They're saying if you don't believe in Islam and you're a Jew or Christian, you pay the jizya.
We're going word by word. Which word says Jew and Christian in here?
The reason why they have the parenthetical comment is because it's obvious that's what the people of the scripture are. You know what the people of the book are, right?
100%.
Okay, so this is from out of those who do not believe
and
Islam.
They do not acknowledge the religion of truth, of the truth.
Right. So how many Jews or Christians? How many Jews or Christians believe in Islam?
So it doesn't say Islam. So again, this is what you clearly.
What's the religion of truth, and what's the religion that has Allah and a last day and a messenger?
Of the book, bro.
What? Hold on. What is the religion that believes in Allah, this last day, and what's a religion that has who's Allah's messenger?
I'm assuming you've read Surah 60, where it talks about that Abraham was an excellent pattern for the people, right, and the people who were with him.
Yeah, we could go there, but hold on. Look at this. Who is Allah and his messenger?
So where does it? So again, bro. Again, so in the Quran, Allah is also the God of the Bible and the Torah and all them types.
Okay. This is not what it's saying, but I can prove it to you from the verse. Are you ready to look at the verse, Surah 929?
I'm waiting to see the Jew and the Christian in here.
Nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and his messenger. Who is Allah and his messenger?
So Allah is God, and his messenger are the messengers that he sends.
It's in singular, not plural, and it says Allah and his messenger. Who is Allah's messenger?
So there's multiple messengers in the Torah.
It's not plural in this verse. Who is Allah's messenger? Why is it so hard to answer? Because, see, you're playing a game with the text. That's fine, but it's also dishonest.
I'm playing a game with the text, bro. Hold on. You're telling me Islam and Christians and Jews are in the text. What are you saying? Show it to me. I'm waiting for you to show me. When it clearly says the opposite of what you're saying.
Every translator knows this. That's hold on, go back. Go back.
Different.
Go back to where you were, because it's going to prove what I'm saying. And you go back to where you were. Go back to where it says the messenger. We're going to look at it in Arabic. It parses it out. Can you go back?
Moses is a messenger. Jesus is a messenger.
Let's stop running away from the text. Okay, stop right there. Okay.
So like your man said.
What does it say? No, stop. What does it say? What does it say there? Is it singular?
Or period, bro.
Is it singular or plural? The messenger.
That's why I just said his messenger is Moses. It's Jesus. It's Muhammad. It's all that.
Who is Allah's messenger? It's singular, so it can't be multiple people.
I just said, bro.
Okay, so the answer is Muhammad. I don't know why.
Multiple messengers at one time.
What? This says Allah and his messenger. Who is the only person referred to in this manner, using this phraseology in the Quran? It's Muhammad.
No, it's not. What are you talking? That's why I just said. That's right.
Not to be funny. This is why the radical Muslims will do this to the Quranists only, because they don't even recognize Allah
hold on.
as his messenger.
I just spoke about a verse earlier where it says that Jesus is called the messenger of Allah. Yes or no?
Allah and his messenger.
In singular, yes or no?
In
singular, yes or no?
Okay, the same phraseology. This phraseology we're looking at is only for Muhammad, and you know that.
No, it's not, bro. That's why I'm citing a verse to you where Jesus is being mentioned as the messenger of Allah in singular.
Right. Okay. So
that's what I'm saying. These verses right here are in perpetuity. These are laws of war. This isn't doing with just one situation.
Okay. Now, who is the messenger you must believe in, though? To believe in the religion of truth. Who is it?
Surah 2, ayah 285. He doesn't make any differentiation between the messengers.
Okay. So let's say I reject Muhammad as a messenger. Do I believe in the religion of truth, and do I accept Allah and his messenger then? Yes or no?
You could potentially, yeah.
No, I reject Muhammad as a messenger.
You could potentially. We'd have to talk about your theology, bro.
Here's the thing, though. No Muslim in the world, except for a wacky Quranist only, would say what you're just saying.
Quranist only.
Yeah, because you're playing games
I'm
with the
wacky
text.
because you can't show me what you're saying in the verse.
I
where
literally
you
just did. It's singular. That's why you didn't want to answer. It's singular.
I answered the question every direction, bro.
No, you did not. So since it's singular and the phrase is
not Muhammad, I literally said it was Muhammad. I also said in singular it can be.
No, you didn't want to answer directly. You started saying every other name and you started saying messengers until I caught you on it. Then you recognized it was singular.
Singular messenger.
Listen, let me show you.
I also said
let me show you. Let me show you that you
cited a singular verse where another person is mentioned as a messenger, and you want to front like you want to front like they're not. Are you really going to sit there and stipulate that there's no messenger mentioned in the Quran but Muhammad?
All right, let me show you that you didn't really know what's going on.
Yes, no question.
Are you? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you, bro. When I first brought this verse to you to show you what it was clearly saying, you said messengers. But then when you looked at the way it was parsed out, you realize, oh, it's singular. So then you change your story to it's any given messenger at a time.
Bro, I said,
how come you first said it was messengers though?
Very beginning.
Why did you first? Why did you first say it was messengers?
Because I said consistently with the very beginning of the Surah 9.
How's it consistent? Why'd you change it to plural, bro?
I'm answering the question. Answering the question. I didn't change it to plural.
Why'd you say messengers though the first time you answered then?
Because I literally said in singular form. Any like Moses, Jesus, Muhammad in singular form, because like I said at the beginning of this, right, that these verses are for in perpetuity in the future, right?
No, that was what you just recently said. That in the beginning you said messengers, and you said it could be Abraham, it could be Moses. You said everybody and their mama except for Muhammad, because you know the real answer.
I said Muhammad. You gonna lie like that, bro? Come on.
You said him at the very end once I squeezed it out of you like the last piece of toothpaste.
I literally said Muhammad out of all three names like 9 times. What are you saying, bro?
Because you're trying to avoid what's really going on. That's all I'm saying, bro.
Hold on. You're not gonna politely just call me a liar, dude.
No. I didn't say you're a liar. I
never
said that. I'm saying you're dancing around the issue. That's what I'm saying.
You're trying to tell me I didn't say the name when I said all three of the names.
You said it eventually. Here, let me explain. It's not
the first time, bro.
It's not because I think you're a liar. I'll tell you the real reason, and it's actually a compliment to you. I think you're nicer than the Quran is. And so you want this to be
okay. So now you're patronizing me because you
no. I think
slow down.
I think you really feel this way. I'm not patronizing you. You're a smart guy.
Can you show me Jew or Christian in the verse? Yes or no?
The description is of Jew or Christian. You don't need it.
No, it's
okay. You know what?
Then we can agree to disagree.
Put up on your screen.
I'm looking at it right now. It's on my screen right now.
Why don't you go to Surah 929?
I'm put it up right now.
NobleQuran.com.
Word by word in the English and the Arabic. So I'm asking you to show me where Christian and Jew is there and where it's not saying
they're being described to everybody who knows the background on the linguistics. Will you please go to Surah 929?
I'm right here with
Will you please go to Surah 929?
My intelligence and what I know about the Quran and linguistics. Show me.
Will you go to NobleQuran.com, please?
No.
Well, okay. See, that's shady, bro. I'm feeling kind of shady right now with this because
you want to show me an English translation of words that are not there. Show me in the Arabic.
I didn't make the translation. This is not a government plan. This is what Muslims think.
A different translation, right?
I'm not making this up. You're sitting there saying, "Where is it?" I'm telling you.
Start off by reading the Sahih International, right? Then you want to switch translations. How about we go straight to the Arabic?
Well, when we do that, we see it says messenger, not messenger.
Right. Don't disagree.
So there's that.
Don't disagree.
So you
show me Jew.
Can I ask you why you won't go to NobleQuran.com?
Because I just told you, I'm short storing the whole thing. Because you went from the Sahih International version first, right? So we read.
But I'm asking you why you wouldn't go there.
So you want to read interpolations and whatnot. We're going straight to the Arabic. Show me Christian or Jew because it's clearly stipulating, right?
All right, here it is. It's on the screen.
And not they acknowledge. This is word by word. And not they acknowledge the religion of the truth from those who were given the scripture. Hence, I asked you the question: who was given the scripture?
I'm not sure if you understood what I'm saying.
So when I asked you, hold on, real quick. When I asked you that question, you wanted to say it says Islam. So I said, show me where Islam is at.
No.
Hold on, real quick. If you can't show me, this is where we respectfully agree to disagree. You understand?
Yeah, we disagree, but you're not really explaining what I'm saying. Do you agree that you can you describe something without using the word? Yes, you can. Does this obviously describe Islam as the religion of truth? Yes, it does. And that's why I focus on the fact that it says Allah. Everyone else knows it does, except for I'm glad everyone else understands it does. We already established that.
That's
And then what it's saying is
authority. That's
out of the Jews and the Christians.
Hold
Okay,
on,
then
that's an appeal to consensus, fam.
No.
You're not making any linguistic point to me whatsoever.
Oh, really? Then why did I have to point out to you it's singular, not plural?
I didn't disagree with you that it was singular. What are you saying?
Why did you first say messengers?
Because I put it out in the singular context. That's what I'm saying. It's talking about any one of them in singular. I'm saying, again, they weren't all at the same time.
Okay, let's do this. Show me one place in the Quran where it uses the phrase Allah and his messenger as a referent to someone else other than Muhammad. Show me one.
Okay, like I just said to you, Jesus, the messenger.
No. Show me.
Jesus, the messenger.
Show me where it says Allah and his messenger. No, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Show me on your screen where it says Allah and his messenger ever referring to anyone but Muhammad.
Fair.
Because I know what you're going to do, but it's not going to say Allah and his messenger. And you know it's not. It's not going to refer to Jesus as Allah and his messenger.
Okay, so you're going back and forth on the messenger part.
No, I'm not going back and forth. I'm showing you what everyone knows, which this is a stock phrase.
You're going to let me.
This is a stock phrase to refer to Muhammad. Nobody else, bro.
Let me finish my sentence, bro. So we can even agree to disagree on the Muhammad part, right?
Are you going to show me the verse?
We could agree to disagree on that part, right?
Yeah, but because
I'm going to finish what I'm saying. I'm going to finish what I'm saying.
But I'm saying we can, but doesn't mean it's a
we
crazy interpretation.
We could agree to disagree on that part. The more important part of the verse is where you're stipulating that it says that it has to be on Jews and Christians. Correct? That's your claim, right? That it's a religious tax on Jews and Christians, correct?
Yes, and that's why everybody makes the Jews and Christians pay the tax in all the Muslim lands throughout the world. No one agrees with your interpretation because it's invalid. Could you show me where it says Allah and his messenger is referring to anyone else other than Muhammad in the Quran, please?
I will gladly show you that when you show me Jew and Christian in the verse, bro.
So what that means is you can't show me.
No, I can show you, but what you can't do is admit that you could possibly be wrong based upon the Arabic, bro. That's not being intellectual.
No, I never said it said the literal word.
You're poisoning the well, bro. Come on.
I never said that it said the literal word Jew and Christian.
You're warning and poisoning the well, bro. Come on.
I never said that it said the literal words Jew and Christian. That's why I said
So I'm saying, so instead of making an appeal to consensus and authority, say you
I'm showing you.
You can at least be intellectually honest. I'm like, you know what? You have a potential point there. It could.
No, you do not.
It could say that.
Let me break it down.
So if you can't show me Christian and Jew, and I'm saying people who were given the book, who were like, so we just said earlier, Ahlul al-Kitab, right? What does that mean? People of the book, yes or no?
That's the point. It's out of those.
So who
those are the people you tax?
No, it says
literally what it says.
It says people who do not follow that, bro.
No, it says from among them, but they're not Muslims.
And we agree to disagree.
No, we don't, because it's clear what it's saying.
Then you can show me what you're saying. And the whole time I had it up, you couldn't show me. You had to go to a whole nother translation where it's an English translation where they have words in parentheses where are not there in Arabic.
No. We don't do that. The Sahih International explains it fine. I was just showing you something more explicit.
I went to the word by word and read it out from the word by word.
Since you were denying the obvious, I went to something more explicit. But it's clear in the Sahih International. It takes someone with blinders on not to see it. And I could break it down yet again. But here's the thing.
So are the people of the book, real quick, just so I can get your perception here. Are you saying here it's only Muslims? Yes or no?
People of the book are Jews and Christians again and again in the Quran.
I'm saying in this verse.
People of the book are Jews and Christians in this verse as well.
Are Muslims not people of the book?
Muslims are not described as people of the book in the Quran.
Surah 3 ayah 64. Come on now, fam.
All right, let's see here. Okay, now this is fine, but basically you're just changing the topic to go somewhere else, which I guess is what we're gonna do.
No, we're correcting the misinformation you just put out. But if you want to change the topic, we can, bro.
Okay, so you're
completely intellectually disingenuous with what you just did.
What's that,
bro? You can't be honest enough to say, like, you know what? I might not be able to read this in Arabic or check out what it's saying. You might have a point there. The way I can't put Christian and Jew there because you know what? The way it's written right there, you might have a point how you just read that because I read it real slow for the people.
Oh, Surah 364 doesn't say what you're saying it says. See, this is, bro, it doesn't refer to Muslims as people of the book. I'm reading the verse right now. I knew you were wrong. It doesn't say this.
What does it say?
Say, and it's referring to Muhammad, O people of the scripture, and it's funny, even this translation, again, it says Jews and Christians, because everyone knows that's what it is. Come to a word that is just between, hold on.
You're intellectual. No, you're just
I'll prove it from the context. Remember, these are Muslims, okay? These are Muslims,
bro. Like, no, so if I was doing this with Greek, you'd be tripping. If I was putting words in the Greek that aren't there, you'd be tripping.
All right, let me show you I can do it even without the parenthetical statements that make the explicit more obvious.
Just read the verse, bro.
I'm reading it as it's on the screen, but you're scared of noblequran.com. Apparently, it's a CIA plant.
Don't tell me I'm scared, bro. That's not fair, bro.
But you won't put it on the screen, so you are scared of it.
I'm not. Share your screen. Put it up, bro.
All right. So
real quick, the reason I did not share is because we read one verse in English, right? I read it out. I read the same verse you read, and then when I read it, you weren't satisfied. You want to go to another verse. So I said, bump that. Let's go to the word by word in the Arabic and just call it a day, because we could go to a million English translations. At the end of the day, when you want to
not the translation, it's the content of the actual word.
Hold on, bro. You're gonna stop. You're gonna stop cutting me when I'm making a point, bro. Come on now.
I thought you were done, and
no, not even.
All right, well, I'm about done. I'll put it that way. I'm about done. Go ahead and make your point. I'm about done here because this ain't getting us nowhere.
I don't disagree. So I'm saying this is my issue with the whole thing, right? I got no issue with going to anywhere. Don't say I'm scared of none of that type of stuff. That's not fair, bro. I'm not doing that to you, right? I'm not making no implications on you. What I'm saying is like, it's intellectually dishonest, right? To say something says what it does not say. And if we can maybe agree to disagree on what it's saying. But then when you start making appeals to authority and concession, then say I'm scared, that's not fair, bro. That's not being honest in any way, shape, or form, because I'm not scared. Like I said, we read one translation. So why are you scared? I can say you're scared to go to the word by word. I'm not doing that to you, bro. Right, you're scared to go to the Arabic. I'm not doing that to you, bro.
All right, let me show you the rest of Surah 364. Say, O people of the scripture, come to a word that is just between us and you.
Mm-hmm.
Case closed, but we'll continue on. That we worship none but Allah. Remember, Christians are accused of worshiping other gods. We worship none but Allah, and that we associate no partners with him, whereas Christians are accused in the Quran of associating partners with him. So that's clearly only speaking about Muslims, and that none of us shall take others as lords besides Allah, which Christians are also accused of. Then if they turn away, say, bear witness that we are Muslims. They are never referred to in this verse as people of the book. So I don't know why you had me go there. It does not refer to Muslims as people of the book.
It started off the verse saying, "Oh, people of the book," and they talked about what they agree on and said that we are Muslims bowing to his will at the end.
Who's being addressed?
They agree on three things, right?
Who's being addressed here?
The people of the book.
Okay, so who are the people of the book?
We're talking about Jews. We're talking about Christians. We're talking
Who's the us? Who's the us in this passage?
You tell me, because I just answered your question. I me right.
The us are the Muslims, because it transitions from us to we. Now, who's the you in this passage?
Fam, they're talking about the people of the book all the way around. That's why I asked you: are Muslims not people of the book? Yes or no?
All right. Muslims are never described as people of the book because the book is called the Bible. So Muslims are never described as the people of the book. The way the people of the book are described is those who hold.
Hold on, Surah 3 out of 81.
Okay, tell me some of the content of the book. The Kitab. Let me prove it. Let me prove it. The Kitab. Why are you not? The Kitab that these people hold to has what in it? It has Injil.
Hold on, real quick.
It has Torah. It has the Psalms. It's not the Quran. The Kitab is something other.
You said something I don't understand. So I want to make sure I hear what you're saying, and I don't want that I'm not putting words in your mouth. Okay. So this is a clarification question. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that every time it says Kitab in the Quran, it's talking about the Bible?
No, the phrase people of the book, it's speaking about Jews and Christians. The book itself.
So hold on. So okay. So just so I understand. So I understand what you're saying. So at the end of 64, when it's saying 364, when it's saying that we are Muslims, right? That's not in connection to people of the book in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, and they're being contrasted and compared to them. And verse 65 is a perfect example. Continues on, it says, "O people of the scripture, why do you dispute about Ibrahim?"
No
fact. So who disputes about Ibrahim? Who disputes?
Hold on, doesn't it
Jews,
say
Christians, and Muslims?
Real quick, but
the Jews and Christians have one perspective,
right?
The Muslims have another. While the Torah and the Injil were not revealed till after him. Have you then no sense? Clearly, there's a differentiation, and the people of the scripture or people of the book are never to be considered Muslims. I'm not saying they don't have a book. Of course they do. But it wasn't a book in that day anyway. So it's funny. Was the Quran a book during the days of Muhammad?
Real quick.
It wasn't. So they're not even the people of the book yet, even by that understanding.
Real quick. So I'm trying to not get lost in what you're saying. So are you saying Abraham's not a person of the book?
Of course, that's what they're disputing about.
No. So are you saying he's a person of the book? Yes or no via the Quran?
Abraham would be a person of the book as a Jew.
Okay, so it also stipulates in another verse that don't argue about him being a Christian or a Jew because he was a Muslim. Right?
Yeah, that's the Islamic claim. They
no,
everybody in the Muslims. I know that.
I'm not saying you would agree with that. We already agreed to disagree at the outset. You're a Christian. I'm a Muslim.
Yeah, it's verse 67. You're referring to verse
67.
67.
We're not switching sides, right? So I'm just trying to be clear on what you're saying the Quran says.
Yeah, you're referring to verse 67. I know what you're talking about.
Right. So real quick. So you're saying. So I'm clear. You're saying that people of the book are not Muslims, but Abraham's a person of the book, and that Abraham's also referred to as a Muslim in the Quran.
Abraham's never called a person of the book. I'm saying as a Jew he would. But here's what I'm saying. I don't think you're.
Abraham was a Jew.
In a manner of speaking, being called out.
Hold on. How is? Hold on. Whoa. In what scripture anywhere is Abraham a Jew?
Okay, I'm in a manner of speaking. That's all how you define it. I don't really care.
In what manner of speaking is Abraham?
Because he's considered the father of the Israelite race. That's what I mean by that. But I don't care about that. So what I'm saying is, okay.
Who agrees with the concept that Abraham was a Jew?
Okay, look. It's fine if you don't want. If you don't like that, that's fine. But see,
I'll let you live.
Like you're taking what you're trying to do is find a different thing to debate about. Let's just not do that, please, because I'm not really interested. That's not anything that's very relevant at all. But what is relevant is this. Here's the two things I'm going to show, and you just can't show different. Nowhere in the Quran does it ever explicitly call anyone other than Jews or Christians people of the book. Number one. Number two, nowhere in the Quran does it ever call anyone else by this specific phraseology. It's a stock phrase to refer to Muhammad. Allah and his messenger. Allah and his messenger is different than saying so-and-so was a messenger. Obviously, we know the Quran says there was prophets prior, but the phrase, the actual stock Arabic phrase, Allah and his messenger, as it's translated in English, is only reserved for one person. That's why you have to recognize that very obvious thing to then go back to Surah 929 and see what it's clearly saying, which is if they're not a Muslim, but they're a Jew or Christian, they have to pay a tax. We don't. It's religious discrimination and it's unfair. But if you want to think it's cool, that's fine. But that's what it's saying. And that's why you can't find there's no commentator that's going to agree with what you're saying, bro.
You're talking about commentators to a Quranist. That's why I'm saying you're being disingenuous and you're playing to authority. Like that's like being 100. Like so, if I was saying that you have to be held to the standard of what Catholics believe, you would disagree with that concept, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
I would be out of step in having a conversation with you, like holding you to that concept. So you're talking to me about commentators and people who, bro, you already know I don't deal with the hadith and whatnot in that sense, right? So talking about
I never appealed to the hadith. I never appealed to the hadith, though.
So who are the commentators, bro?
When I say that, I'm saying anybody.
You're talking about top seer, right? On hadith.
No, in this context, what I mean is modern day translators, modern day interpreters who look at this and understand. That's why at noblequran.com, and this is not the only place, it's all over. You're acting like I'm making up. Here's where I got frustrated. I'll tell you where the point was. When you said you're trying to shoehorn this in there.
You are trying to shoehorn.
That is what bothered me, and I'll tell you why.
Because but it was a fact.
No, here's why. And I'll tell you why. That's why I got more amped. Because you were acting as if this is something I was doing. This is something that every Muslim interpreter person all over the world recognizes these two things I pointed out. It's not me shoehorning. I am showing they're valid in that. They're very valid when they say that because it's clear textually. That's what it's saying. And that's why you can't show me any other time.
Do Muslims, hold on real quick. Do Muslims shoehorn Jesus not dying in the on the cross in the Quran?
I think Surah 4 does say he didn't die on the cross. I think there's a contradiction.
Okay, so on this tape, we can rewind this tape here where you say, "Yeah, I do think the Bible says Jesus died, or the Quran says Jesus died."
It does. Yes, I said that.
His life, and then Jesus said that he was gonna be die.
Yes, I point that out as a contradiction because Surah 4 does say he didn't die. I understand you have a different interpretation, and I respect that. I'm just saying I view the raising up and dying along with Surah 4 as a contradiction. See, I don't view the Quran as infallible.
Real quick, you see what you just there where you say you have a different perspective, and I respect that.
Yeah.
So when I was saying earlier, we should agree to disagree on this point here. That's all, bro. That's the same thing I'm saying there, bro.
The Surah 4 passage, I think that. So here's why I would say that about Surah 4. You could make a debatable case. There's a discussion to have. I recognize that. That's this one verse. There's some confusion in the Arabic, all kinds of things. I recognize that, especially since you have another verse that seems to contradict it. I get how you might want to synthesize it. I get that. What I'm saying is here, this stock phrase, there's two stock phrases that I feel like you are basically denying the validity of them, but they're all over the Quran. And here's the two stock phrases. People of the book, Allah and his messenger. Both those only have one meaning every time they appear in the Quran. And what I'm showing you is if you could show me a difference, if you could show me a place where it's explicitly saying Muslims are the people of the book, it's explicitly saying, or where it's saying explicitly someone else beside Muhammad is being talked about when it says Allah and his messenger, then I would have to stop and rethink some of this. But you can't really do that because those are stock phrases. That's why I'm saying I'm more strident of that, because I feel like you're trying to change what the text says. I get Surah 4. I get you disputing that. But this, I feel like it's kind of like it's disingenuous because it's obvious what it's saying.
So the moment I took you to a verse about Muslims being talked about as the people of the book, you disagreed based upon some external context, right? So I try to keep
no.
Go ahead.
I didn't.
So when you're making appeals to authority in translators and all the other, like what is that doing to me? Help me understand. How is that not appealing to an external concept?
That's not what I did though. And let me show you.
Help me understand.
Here's how.
Go ahead.
I asked you, first of all, who's being addressed in Surah 364.
Right. Gotcha.
Second thing, I said it's just between us and you. That's what it says here. And I asked you who is the us and who is the you. And then when it says that we worship, that we associate, that none of us, when I asked you those, I said, who is that referring to? And then when it says if they turn away, I was asking who that. And then it says bear witness Muslims. I was only going upon intertextual consideration, showing you he's making a clear distinction between the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims on the other hand, and it's obvious only the Jews and the Christians are being referred to as the people of the book. I gave you the textual considerations because what I'm doing is showing you the rhythm or the pattern of the Quran.
Got you.
The only people who are accused of associating partners with Allah, actually, you could even say the Jews, where it says they say so and so is the son of God, but primarily it's the Christians. Same thing with all these accusations. So this is clearly drawing this distinction.
No, hold on real quick. So like that's not the primary case of the Quran. The Quran is not primarily talking about Christians as being the polytheists and whatnot. I
didn't say that. I said the specific. Notice I'm focusing on specific language. The shirk language, associate no partners. Who are the people accused of that? That's primarily Christians.
No, it's not primarily Christians. It's primarily anybody.
Instead of disagreeing, since you're a Quran only, what you really need to do to prove your case and basically shut me up is show me the other verses.
Any verse that's polytheist, bro.
You got to show me the other verses, or I'm just not going to buy it.
Okay, cool, got you. So there's plenty of verses that talk about the people of the book concept, right? And so that's why I even cited the secondary concept about. I asked you, is Abraham a person of the book? You said yeah. Then I said, doesn't it say he's a Muslim? Then you wanted to start fishtailing on that one, right? I let you go on it, let you live, right? There's other verses that talk about Allah and his messengers in plural and whatnot, right?
I'm waiting.
Talking about all of them,
for you to go to the verses. You're just having a conversation right now, but you're not showing me any ayahs. Where are these places you're saying someone else besides Muhammad is referred to as Allah and his messenger?
You got me face palming right now because you literally agreed that there's verses that stipulate certain things, right? So when I said so do you agree that there's a verse that's talking about Abraham is also a Muslim, right? Then you really know, well, I'm a Christian. I don't believe, I got you. I'm not saying you have to agree.
No, even in the Quran, it says Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian.
It says he was a Muslim, right?
Yeah, yes, that's what it says in Surah 367. Right, by the way, you're totally taking us off to talk about other stuff.
We're talking about the same thing.
Because the original claim is about who has to pay the jizya. You got us running all over the Quran.
I'm not GMS, bro.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, why can't you show from Surah 9 that this is the thing is, here's what's funny.
I literally showed you from Surah 9, then you disagreed with it. Then I suggested we agree to disagree, and you didn't want to let it go.
I'm fine to let it go. I mean, thank God I don't live in a Muslim country and I don't have to pay the jizya. But I don't have to face that kind of religious discrimination. That's why I'm anti-Islamic, because you guys believe in. Okay, check this out. If it's who has to pay the jizya,
real quick. When I gave the historical example of my people calling Muslims in, right? My mother's people calling in Muslims, right, to help them kick out the Christians who have their boot on their necks.
I'm a Quranist only. So that doesn't matter to me.
Okay, that's cool. That's straight. That's you trying to score some cheap points on something that don't even matter. Because like,
no,
again,
I'm showing you got to hold. I'm showing you got to hold yourself to your own standard. If you're Quranist only, stop telling me about Christians and Islam and some other century.
Oh, because you don't like the narrative, bro. Like, so again, so a Quranist doesn't reject history. They don't accept hadith as jurisprudence. Do you understand the concept?
Okay, then let's talk about the pact of Umar.
Bro, that's why I brought it. You can bring that up. That's why I also brought up what happened in Spain. But when I start talking about Spain, you don't want to deal with it, right? Because you know the history of that, right?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think that Moors were flawless in what they did. I'm not sure what view you have of what happened, but we'd be changing subjects yet again.
Real quick,
the Moors were imperialistic.
Let me ask you a question.
The Moors were imperialistic.
Simple historical question. How much were the Christians taxing the Jews before they came and had the Moors come in?
Oh, I don't know. The Christians were totally persecuting the Jews. They were all kinds of messed up.
I'm
not a Roman Catholic, bro. I'm a Protestant. So that's a fact. But they didn't do so because the Bible told them to do so.
Real quick. So we're the same Muslim Moors that have the same Quran I'm talking about, right? The reason I brought this up is because you said, oh, well, you couldn't fight with them, right? Some people say, all right, cool. Some people say, cool, got you. The Quran doesn't say what you were saying. Hence, they were able to fight with other Jews in Toledo against the Christians, right? When the Jews opened the doors for them, asked them to come through. It wasn't they were making war on the Jews. They didn't make war on the Jews.
Bro, this has nothing to do with Surah 9 at all.
It has everything to do with Surah 9, bro.
You're going to some historical
situation. It has everything to do with Surah 9.
This is a strange move for a Quranist only, but here's
no, it's not. Then so you just said you don't know too many Qurans. Now you tell me how I'm supposed to move. How does that make sense, bro?
Because it's clearly you're not using the Quran only.
I use the Quran, and then we disagreed.
You're talking about Spain in the 1400s, bro.
I use the Quran, and we disagreed on what it said. Then I use the historical concept. So now I'm a funny Quranist, right?
Okay, so tell me who is supposed to pay the jizya in Surah 929? Who's supposed to pay it then?
First of all, willing people, right?
Who are these willing people, though?
First, anybody willing, right? So that's why I told you in my concept of how I read the Quran and whatnot, you could be an atheist in a Muslim society if you willingly pay a jizya tax, right?
Can Muslims pay jizya?
Hold on. I'm going to finish answering your question, right? Because there's a dualistic concept to this, right? That's what I was trying to tell you the first time, right? So yes, there's people dealing in a war concept, right? 100%. And that's why I'm also saying this does not have to do with just a one period of time or whatnot, right? But we'll agree to disagree on that concept there, right? However, I'm saying there's two ways to do it, right? You can just willingly pay it, or it's on the other side of war. You know what I'm saying? Because there's people who are of the book who also break treaties, etc. whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not just a oh, well, this is you're not a Muslim or whatnot. Nah, bro. It literally says in Surah 3 ayah 64 that people who agreed with a certain concept are Muslims. So it's not. So we're disagreeing on what the Quran says. Period about the people of the book.
Like I was asking, who has to pay the jizya specifically? Could you answer that, please?
Okay, I said two groups of people, right? One on the other side of war, and one people who do it willingly, right? But either or is a willing concept.
Okay,
or is a willing concept. So
Muslims,
it's not a mandated. So hold on. You're not going to be.
Could Muslims pay the jizya?
Hold on, real quick. You can't be forced to pay a tax you don't want to pay.
Okay.
Do you understand? So there's no compulsory religion in Islam or in the Quran. So you can't be forced to pay the jizya tax.
You said it was on the other side of war. Did you mean the enemies that get defeated?
100%.
Okay, so after you defeated these enemies, they don't have to actually pay taxes to you then?
If they don't want to be in the land, no.
Well, see, now you're changing it. See, you're adding something else that's not even in the text about being in the land. So what you're admitting is that if you defeat someone in war, this is according to your presuppositions, that they would have to pay the jizya.
So the Quran gives
if they're in the land, right?
Real quick, the Quran gives the context of like when the Muslims are forced to leave Masjid al-Haram, right? And then it also talks about going to basically take it back or whatnot, right? So that's the context I'm talking about, right? So for instance, if you're a defeated people, right? You got options in the Quranist concept, right? Or in the Quranic concept. You don't have to. You're not just killed. You're not just enslaved. You're not just whatever. You got options. You can choose to stop fighting. Hence, the Muslims have to stop fighting. It's peace. The moment they say they want peace, gotta give them peace. Gotta give them peace, right?
All right. So they're a defeated foe. Do they have to pay the jizya or not?
No, it's not mandatory. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Help me understand. Let's say that Saudi Arabia just conquered Kuwait, right? And do you think the Kuwaitis who just got conquered by Saudi Arabia are gonna be like, hey man, let's pay this jizya to our oppressors? These guys.
No, it's like the multitude of Christians that flooded into Moorish Spain because they wanted to bathe more than once a year, and so they had no issue paying the jizya to people who had the situation set up for them.
Yeah, well, I'll pass. I'll let that that slide for now. But what I'm asking you is from the Quran.
Did that not happen?
From the Quran,
were the Christians not leaving Christendom so much they had a term called going Turk? They had Christians that saw Cordoba, Spain, and thought they died and literally went to heaven because they could bathe every day and had lit streets and all that.
Yeah, the Turks are known for treating Christians great.
Yeah, the term was going Turk.
Yeah, the Turks are known for how
it was a conversion. It was a conversion to Islam, just like renegades were Christians who converted to Islam.
Yeah, the Armenians, man, they really got treated great by those Turks.
Yeah.
Okay, look, in the genocide of 1915, they were treated really friendly. Now, look, going back to what
the Pope issuing papal bulls instituting slavery, that was fantastic.
Are you against slavery? You have a problem with slavery?
100%.
Huh? So slavery is not in the Quran.
Nope.
Okay. First time I heard that, but
no, it's not.
We could talk about that next, but could we please?
Is slavery in the Bible?
Could we? No,
slavery in the Bible.
You just like change the topic.
Is slavery in the Bible? I make the argument it's not. I say Exodus 21 is the most mistranslated chapter in the entirety of the Bible.
All right. Surah 929. Who is paying the jizya? You've never really answered it.
I've answered this question 3 times, bro.
So it's people who want to pay it, right?
Yeah, it's a willing concept.
Then where did the part about until they feel subdued, where did that come from? Why does that say that in Surah 929, until they feel subdued? Why would you need to feel subdued if you're happy about this?
So you got to break down what subjugation is, right? So like you said earlier, right, in your whole separation of church and state concept, like paying Caesar what is Caesar's and paying God's what is God's, that you're recognizing the authority and power. Okay. Same exact concept what you just said.
How is it authority and power if it's voluntary?
Say that if the what?
How is it authority and power if it's voluntary? Because you just told me you could pay it or not pay it.
Because again, because you're paying it to be under the leadership or whatnot. It's the so if you're paying to me,
why would you want to be in the leadership of the guys who just conquered you?
Because so just like the Jews, I bring up this concept all day long. Like my mother's people in Spain reached out to the people in West Africa to come get them and said, we will pay you this if you get these Christians off our neck. Why would they want to do that?
I don't know. I thought we were talking about the Quran, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm talking about Muslims. Were the Moors not Muslims? Did they not move in with the Quran? Was 711 AD not during the Umayyad Caliphate?
I don't know. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. But we were talking about the Quran, and now you're going off. So you can't really explain to me why you would have to be humble. If it's voluntarily, you're not explaining why you're subdued and feeling humbled.
I literally just gave you a real life example why I would want to voluntarily pay that tax.
You could well, wait. So you're saying you would have to pay then if they came to rescue you?
No.
Okay, so then you wouldn't have to pay. You could just get free help. No, come help us. You're a great army. Come help us. And I don't got to pay for it. You know, it's like you get the union benefits without being in the union. Sounds great.
So you're also talking about Jews and whatnot, fam. You're talking about people who can't in exile. They cannot have their own nation and rulership like that. So they got to be underneath somebody.
Okay, but you said it's willing. So that
100% it was willing.
Why would Jews want to pay tax?
When the Jews hit up the Moors in West Africa, it was a 100% willing concept. Please come through and get these Christians off our neck.
Okay, I don't understand.
Did that happen or not happen? Did 711 AD happen or no, bro?
Look, check this out. If going to
and
other
let's get real technical with it. In 711 AD, there was no school of jurisprudence. There was no madhab. Abu Hanifa and Imam Jafar al-Sadiq were 12 and 13 years old, right? They hadn't even hit puberty yet. There was no school of jurisprudence out there, right? The only thing that was popping off was the Mu'tazilite theology, which was the rationalist school of thought, where the Quranists were amongst them, right? So unless you want to name off a madhab that the Moors were under, I want to understand like why my understanding is different than their understanding, which they obviously implemented while they were there. Help me understand that right quick.
Why is your understanding different than the Pact of Umar?
Break it down.
Okay. Now, if we could go back to the Quran.
No, break down the Pact of Umar. Go ahead.
I mean, this is a lot more. Okay, that's fine. But I just want to point out what you never did. You never, not even once, showed me any place that Jews and Christians are that anyone else other than Jews or Christians are ever referred to as people of the book. Number one. Number two, you never showed anybody where the phrase Allah and his messenger ever refers to anyone other than Muhammad. Both of those things prove my interpretation, which is the standard Islamic interpretation of Surah 929.
So this is exactly what I did, right? So first and foremost, I showed you two verses.
No.
Hold on. I'll let you speak. Don't do that, bro. Your mom raised you better than that.
All right, I'll let you get this last point, and then maybe we discuss the Pact of Umar another time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, because it's so you want to talk about it all night, but you don't want to break it down for the people. You want to talk about something, but you don't want to break it down.
It's going on 3 hours.
Okay, so
it ain't like I'm ducking out after 5 minutes. It's going on 3 hours.
Quick, so I'm gonna explain what happened, right? So I gave you two verses about the Muslim concept in the people of the book. You disagreed with one. I gave you another that you never really even addressed, right? And on the second point, I said I would give you the verse specifically about Allah and his messenger when you can specifically show me Jew or Christian in that one verse in Surah 929. And then I also let you know that there's other verses, period. You can go check it yourself where it says Allah and his messengers in plural. But I'll give you the specific one whenever you supply me, like I said, on camera, with where it says Christian and Jew in Surah 929. And I said it like that just so you could be intellectually honest and be like, you know what? It doesn't say that. So we can finish off on the Middle Eastern Christian thing if you want to.
Nah, it's cool, bro. It's been 3 hours, bro. I 3 hours is kind of long, bro. You know what I'm saying? 3 hours is like, I mean, that's a serious commitment right there. It's 2 hours and 54 minutes right now. So it's cool, man. If we could just cool it right there, that would be fine with me.
No worries.
All right. Now, what's this other debate we've got coming up here? Is that still happening? And who's that with? And what's
as far as I understand, unless either one of you canceled, like y'all set it up for the 11th? You and Yara?
Yeah, the 11th. What time did we say?
Hold on, let me check the email right quick.
Because I think it's gotta be. Let's see here. October 11th, and what's his name? Yara.
Yes, sir.
It's Elder Yara, right? That's what he goes by.
Yes, sir.
What time did we say? I was hoping we were saying a little bit later. I know it's not.
Yeah, I know it was later in the afternoon. So hold on, I want to say. Hold on.
Well, I think I had like in the night, like maybe 10:15 East Coast, 7:15 West Coast.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, I think it was 7 o'clock. You said.
Yeah. I'll probably be able to like jump on at 7, but probably I don't know. Maybe if you could schedule it like 10 minutes after or something like that. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one last question in closing and whatnot.
Sure.
So we are in the age right now of I believe something that Islam has never seen, which is the age of textual criticism, at least from the external points, where the Christians are starting to go through the variant concepts of the Quran, etc., whatnot, right? So in this day and age, do you feel like the satirical route of like the Islamicize me kind of thing, or like how David Wood makes like the origami pigs and the goats and all them kind of things, like, do you feel like that's the best route to go in terms of apologetics, or do you feel that, for instance, being able to start going at the textual criticism route within the Quran is a better way to go? Like, for instance, right, being able to textually criticize the Quran and argue, like, did Jesus die in the Quran, et cetera, all the kind of things.
Well, I don't think it's either or. Jay Smith, who's one of the main people doing some of the textual critical work at like a more pop level, meaning breaking it down to masses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He's like, I saw him at a conference, and he was all about Islamicize me. He was even looking for ways to help out with the Boom Boom Room. And so, he's open for both, and he is a pacifist. So I don't think it's either or, but I also don't think it's for everybody. So it's a combination of things, you know. I did a debate with Shadid Lewis. Is the Quran trustworthy? I'd do that again. But at the same time, so David's not me. I'm not David, meaning I wouldn't do everything he does. But there's also some things I would do. So it depends on the individual specific thing. You know what I mean? I'm not, you won't ever catch me making origami, whatever he's doing. I'm not eating stuff. That ain't never happening. But using satire to bring out, critique bad ideas for a more popular audience, meaning, you know, a more mainstream general audience. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And that's not all I do. It's just a tool in the toolkit, though.
So last little quick question off this, because it made me think of something what you just said. Like, so we were talking about earlier in terms of like how the Salafi concept and the more extremist concept are kind of spreading a bit more and whatnot. Do you feel like, and this is why I asked about the textual criticism part, like, do you feel like it would be more beneficial to even the Christian world to focus more on the textual criticism, being that the satire and even the things like the drilling holes in the Quran and the making origami pigs and all that kind of things, like that seems to be fueling the fire for people saying like the Salafis, whatever, being like, oh, see, like this is how the West is disrespecting our religion, our messenger, all them kind of things, and they kind of use those to fuel more of their spread or whatnot.
I mean, Muslim has been killing Christians in the Middle East way before that ever happened. They'll always find some excuse or reason. So I don't think that's really a major contributing factor. I think the real problem is Islam's idea. I think you've got to deal with these things in a strong way, and that's so that I think that's a fine thing. I don't think those things are directly corrected, because when I study the history of Islam, you know, books like you know, History of Christian-Muslim Relations, The Decline of Eastern Christianity under Islam, Islamic Imperialism, Crucified Again, The Arab Christian, Who Are the Christians in the Middle East. When I study even Spencer, you know, The Myth of Islamic Tolerance, when I see those and I see the history of Islam and the way it treats the other, that's been a problem of Islam ever since it's been around, and that's not going to stop anytime soon, regardless of cartoons and drawings and all that. They're just going to do it, and there's always a reason to be upset. They constantly accuse Christians of doing insane things they don't do, and so I don't think that's really that relevant. I think it's just going to happen. The Islamic world's perpetually outraged about something, because really it's a pretense to get people's land. So that's never going to stop.
So you're saying that whether you do the satire or not, the same game is still going to be played. There's still it's more like a game of risk kind of a thing.
Yeah, I know some of the most respectful, loving, humble Christians I've ever met from the Middle East who literally would not harm a fly, and they had to leave their Islamic countries because of Islamic persecution. Famous example was my friend who was a mathematics professor in Pakistan. Some of the professors wanted his position. They wanted to open up another position for tenure, so they all ganged up on him, and it told the people in charge that he had blasphemed against a prophet, and they already knew he was a Christian, so he already doesn't think Muhammad's a prophet, and he didn't do any such thing. This is like the sweetest man, you know, an older man too, and he had to leave the country. His life was under threat. This is a man with a high level of education. He's teaching university level, high level mathematical concept. Now he's in Australia. So it's just, you don't have to do anything. You literally don't have to do anything. All you got to do is exist in those places, because they interpret Surah 9 and other things much different than you, and that's not going to stop anytime soon, regardless of, you know, how many internet discussions happen or whatever. It's not going to stop anytime soon. So I'm okay with, you know, every means necessary that could be moral, ethical, and that can be done peacefully. I think those are much more preferable. So it's going to happen no matter what, man.
Yeah, real quick.
No other religion kills people for drawing cartoons. Nobody else does that. You know what I'm saying? No. Islam is a special problem. It just is what it is.
So just to clarify, like, so for me, there's nothing in the Quran that authorizes killing somebody for making a cartoon, right? And so that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here to talk about this, because it is a problem, period. Extremism is a problem, period, and the only thing that can solve extremism is moderation from the outside and then from the inside or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of the spirit of the last couple of questions there, just to see if you would be willing to put down certain weapons to not ignite certain fires on other people. But I also hear what you're saying in the sense to where those fires are going to be there anyway.
I don't think Muslims respect weakness. I don't think they respect weakness, and I think the strong but righteous is the way to go.
So
you know Islamic culture.
Yeah, I just want to be clear.
This little like the namby-pamby West, we're not gonna. It doesn't work in real life.
No. That's why I brought up the concept of the textual criticism and whatnot, like, and actually engaging them on an intellectual basis.
Bro, you can get killed for that if you do that in Islamic country.
I didn't say in Islamic country. I'm saying in the West, bro.
Yeah, so Muslims in the West only have a certain amount of influence on their larger world. It's just this is a massive problem, and even if you do it in the West, they can put fatwas on you. You can still have a problem.
No, I'm with it. No, like I'm saying, like your man Rashad Khalifa in Tucson got done it. I'm not mad at you, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm not mad at you, right? But like, so the point of the question, I have no issue with what your answer was. So if you can't engage intellectually, in satire is your only other option. What effect do you think is going to happen at that juncture?
Well, you just made a false dichotomy. I engage intellectually. I've debated Islamic apologists. I'll continue to do so. I can engage intellectually with them, no problem. I've done that. So it's not can't. And when I do satire, it's critiquing bad ideas. So okay. It's satire with an intellectual element. If you notice, everything is highly content driven. Anytime I do one of these skits, anytime, it always has massive sources involved.
So the viewers understand. Where can they go check out your debates with the Islamic apologists and what?
Look up Vocab Malone, Shadid Lewis. That's one. Just Google those two things. You'll be able to find them. Mm-hmm. Look up another set of terms: Vocab Malone, Nadir Ahmed. That's another one. Another one is Vocab Malone and Matthew. Crap, what's his name? That one I don't remember his last name, but I remember the topic was correcting misrepresentations of Islam. I'll re-upload that one because I don't remember the name. But those are three different sets, and I did more than one debate with two of the guys. So there's some examples that are there online that you can find.
Do you have any debates so I know you were talking about debating more now that your channel is not monetized or whatnot. So are you going to be debating? You got plans to debate Muslims coming up in the future?
Maybe it depends. I kind of get dragged into it. It's not like I really want to do some of this, but I'm just, it just is what it is right now. Maybe, I don't know. It depends. Muslim debaters are tough. I mean, did you hear the last thing where Ijaz Ahmed or whatever? What's his name? How do you say that? What's his name? Shabir Ali's former student in the middle of the debate gave the guy's whole home address and then his whole family's, his sister, everybody's address, their phone number, their full names. Like, this is in the middle of the debate that happened 2 weeks ago. It was unbelievable he did that. This is what you get when you debate some of these guys. So I don't know.
So yeah, I think you could definitely curtail that depending on the schools of thought you deal with and who you talk to and whatnot. So
maybe you would think a student of Shabir Ali would be a nice guy, right? Who wouldn't do something like that. Dock somebody in the middle of the debate and then say, you will be found, is what he told him. You will be found. I mean, this is a real world. This just happened.
No, I'm saying,
I think it's his name.
Is he a current student of Shabir, or is Shabir just
I don't know all the details of the exact relationship at this moment. I know Shabir wouldn't sign off on that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you would think, right? Check it out. Find out what I'm talking about. Pretty sure it's Ijaz Ahmed. He always blogs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at that because that's crazy. That's nonsense.
Name, that might be the wrong name. Let me find the name. Then I really need to. This was making the rounds.
Hey, if you ever want a certain debate, we can get in the clock, bro.
No, I don't. You're a cool guy. You can be pretty chill. But after this discussion, I would not. To be frank, no, I don't want to say it because I don't think that would be a profitable debate. Is a Suriname debate with us? Maybe with somebody else. You know what you need to do.
I debate with timed rounds. I don't do freestyle debates.
You need to debate Muslims on this because you don't need to convince my mind because I don't believe in religious taxes for anybody. I'm not going to religiously discriminate and give anybody a tax. I don't believe in that.
So I don't got an issue.
You need to debate your fellow brethren. That's who you need to change their mind.
Anybody who says the Quran says certain, so when it comes, when you get on a hadith, I'm gonna be right there next to you, right? Like you said, I agree probably about 80% of the stuff you were talking about, a lot of stuff, right? But with the moment you say the Quran says something, we gotta slow. I need you to show me, right? So So that's the only time you're gonna get any kind of heat from me, right? Is when you're trying to say it says something. I'm like, oh, let's slow it down and see if it says that. And then if there's appeals to other things, you're gonna see something from me, right? That just is what it is.
I don't like your
my favorite game is let's play what does the book say?
Well, I don't feel like that's what you did here tonight, bro. I'm just trying to. I don't really feel like that's what happened at all.
You can say what you feel.
We
right?
start talking about. Well, I'm doing that to try to be nice, but you went way off on other subjects. Never showed those two things. Went to other passages. Talked about historical events. It just never really happened.
We can agree to disagree, because I could go through all the litany of stuff you did that was intellectually dishonest, but I've already done it. Really, I've already done it.
That's fine. Well,
and the tail of the tape says what it says.
Then really, I really think you should debate these other Muslims, because you don't need to convince me, because I'm not going to charge you a tax and subjugate you, but they would. In fact, you'd probably be one of the first people they'd come after. You need to convince them before that time comes, because I'm not going to hurt you.
So here would be a better situation, right? So if you and I are standing arm in arm saying the same thing against them, right?
I'm limited in how much I can link up with somebody who's not in Christ. I'm not saying we couldn't do anything, but there's kind of a limit. I got to be real careful with that. There's some things we could probably do, but it'd have to be. I'm very kind of specific.
So define, just so I understand what you're saying. Just clarify not in Christ for me.
Well, somebody who. I'm not trying to be rude. Someone who accepts a false prophet who contradicts Christ, it's.
So just so I'm clear, what's the contradiction? Just so I get it clear from what you're saying, so I don't have to assume.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things in just the Quran itself. The misunderstanding of the Trinity, the fact that it says don't call him son, even though he's called the Son of God, a misunderstanding of what it means to call him Son of God, the whole consort language, getting the Bible wrong itself, saying it's Ishmael and not. There's a whole long list that just shows
it's Ishmael.
Rejection. It shows just a rejection of really everything there, even claiming to be a prophet. We've already had Jesus, the Son of God. We don't need to regress to some guy.
So okay, so I'm not in Jesus, because I'm not in Christ, as you say, because I follow another prophet.
So wait, you think you're in Christ?
I'm trying to understand what you mean when you say in Christ, so I can say
when you follow a false prophet, you can't be in Christ. Yes. Do you think you're in Christ?
So my position is that the Quran would not be an antichrist situation, right? So
okay, it says Surah 5 says, "I didn't tell anybody to take me as God." It's got little Jesus talking there. It's misquoting him. It says, "I never told anyone to take me as God." So it literally puts words in the mouth of Jesus. It rejects who Jesus is. That's a problem. That's antichrist spirit right there.
So just all right, cool. Just so we're clear. So your concept is that the Bible says that Jesus did say he was God, or no?
Of course. I'm a Christian, bro. It's clear. I debated this topic before. Of course, this is something Christians have recognized ever since the days of the New Testament. And this claim about all these people who are Muslims, the Quran reinvents history. Forget about the Hadith. The Quran talking about Abraham's a Muslim. What? It's historically insane and impossible. It's anachronistic. There's some. You recognize the massive problems talking about Abraham's anachronistic. Some guy in the Arabian Peninsula, 600 AD, claiming he knows Abraham was a Muslim. What? It's bizarre. There's some massive problems. It's a rejection of the faith wholesale.
So is the biggest rejection the fact that there's another prophet, or the fact that you feel that it takes down the deity of Jesus in a sense, right?
Well, those two things go hand in hand.
Okay.
Following a false prophet who then embraces the spirit of Antichrist, meaning contradictory to who Jesus was and what he did. Jesus Christ dying on the cross for the sins of sinners, paying atoning work, and of course that being because of who he is, all that Islam rejects wholesale. Surah 1 opens up with the polemic against Christians, and so you just go on and it's just nonstop polemics in many ways against Christians and how to do X, Y, Z, and in regards to subjugation, like we were just talking about Surah 9. I mean, you're not going to have Christians talking about, let's discuss in our book how to subjugate people of a different religion. You know what I'm saying? But this is what the Quran has, and we see the example of Muhammad.
So right there, you just threw in the hadith concept, right? So
So I know that you don't recognize that, but the thing is, Muhammad was in history, and we know it's written about him. We know what he did, that's why Muslims don't accept the position you have. So really, I just don't see that. I'm not the guy you need to debate. You really need to debate other Muslims. You need to convince them to stop persecuting Christians, convince them to accept the Quran only, convince them Jesus Christ died on the cross, convince them not to force Christians and Jews to pay the jizya.
So,
all that kind of stuff.
Got you. Like, so people like you, people like Sam Sharon, people like David Wood, they'll say something's in the Quran, but then when they get challenged on wanting to debate, is it in the Quran or not, they don't want to deal with that. They would prefer to go like, let me go see what's in the hadith and whatnot, right? So David Wood's rejected debates, you've rejected debates, Sam Shamon's rejected debates, all them kind of things, right? But they want to make claims about what's in the Quran. I got no issue by what you say about the hadith, right? So I debate Muslims all day. I debate Muslims on, did Jesus die on the cross? I debate Muslims on, is Muhammad the last and final messenger, or is it an Israelite messenger, right? I debate Muslims on all kind of stuff, right? Well, I got a record to debate them on it, right? But at the same point in time, I debate anybody who talks about what the Quran is saying, and they don't want to stick to what the book actually says, right?
Well, we just did that, and I'm pretty flabbergasted with the results.
No, we didn't debate, bro.
You have
I do my debates on the clock.
You have an amazing ability to contradict and ignore what is literally staring right in front of you on the page.
Yeah, so anybody can go back to the tape and see the word by word comparison that was done, and it was clear that what the word said was 100%, 80%, 80 degrees different than what you said.
Brother, I mean, I'm looking at the live chat. People don't really seem to agree with your assessment of the situation.
Bro, you can make appeals to authority all day.
First of all, that'd be called an argument from popularity, not an appeal to authority, first of all. But second of all, what I'm saying is that's your perception, but your perception is very different from, I think.
So the majority of people who are watching right now are Christians, yes?
I don't know what they are.
Yes, you do. You recognize the same names in the chat that I recognize, bro.
Alfred Khan,
Anna D. You recognize the same names in the chat that I recognize.
Von Ryan, I don't know. I don't
recognize the same names in the chat that I recognize.
Magnificent Prophet. I don't know who these folks are, bro. I know some of them. Yeah, I'm just saying. Happy Homeschool TX. I don't know. If I know you guys, I apologize.
Okay.
Look, bro. Just I'm saying we had a conversation that was cool. We've talked. Maybe we'll talk again. But you just need to. The best thing is to debate them, because I'm not going to harm or hurt anybody.
I'm not arguing for debate with you right now,
they
bro.
are.
I'm not arguing for debate with you right now. I see you don't want that, bro. It's all gravy, right? So that's not even the issue, right?
Bro.
So that's not even the issue with me, right? I'm not even begging for debate. That's not what I get down on, right?
Cool. What are we talking about? I really want to go, bro.
When you start making appeals to other things in the conversation, well, oh, look at what this is saying. Look what that's saying, bro. What were we saying?
Yeah, I went to the Quran, so that's.
Yeah, and I went to the Quran too.
No, you start talking about West Africa, bro, or whatever.
When you started talking about peace trees and whatnot, I brought up what happened in Spain and whatnot, right?
Okay, you brought up something that.
I brought up something very significant in history.
Okay. Cool. All right, it would be all right if I leave now, please. It's been over 3 hours, and I will be at church tomorrow.
Yeah, no worries. Take your leave, bro.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate the free time.
Yes, appreciate it, and see you again later. You guys have a beautiful night. Peace out.
Anyway, thank you for sticking with us, family. Appreciate you for your time. Appreciate you for your comments. Appreciate you for your wisdom. You know what I'm saying? For your whatever you can share. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Sal Showtime. Please donate to Sal in his Cash App. Keep the channel popping and running. Stay tuned for the debate coming up on the 11th with Vocab Malone and Yahya Ben Nazareth of the Yahweh War Machine. Does Scripture teach the multinational church is the fulfillment of national Israel? One more time. Does Scripture teach the multinational church is the fulfillment of national Israel? Coming up on October the 11th. around 7:15 Pacific time, 10:15 Eastern time. With that, I'm about to shut this one down and say peace and love.